chat's got soul. From the gavel to the gas, we're watching it all. Covering the courtroom, big case or small. Laugh when we can, cry when we must, but it's all real talk, you can count on us. We're not the pros, just fans who care. With popcorn in hand and a comfy chair. And every twist, we're right there. Together like we're all in the witness chair. This is the Broken Baker, where the trials come alive, where the chat is wild and the vibes survive. We're watching the worst of what people do, but we keep it light, yeah, that's our truth. It's the only place for crime, and it feels just right. We bring the justice talk into your night. So hit that stream, don't miss the call. At the Broken Baker, we cover it all. Oh yeah. We're just laymen with a view, but we ask the things the world wants to. Digging through the facts, side by side. Even when it's dark, we bring the light. No clickbait, no fake feels, just truth and the highs and the reels. With the chat that roasts and rise, we're just here for the case and the vibes. This is the Broken Baker, where the stories unfold with a smile in the heart, even when it's cold. Yeah, we cover the bad with a wink and a grin. Where the real talk starts, come on, jump in. It's the only place to be, can't you see? For trials and truth, it's BBTV. The Broken Baker, where the trials come alive. Yeah, we'll be here, trial after trial. Yeah.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, whoever you are, what if any you might be, and welcome to another Verdict Watch. I took the day off yesterday, spending 5 hours in Legoland, and nothing happened really on Verdict Watch other than the judge allowed them to rewatch the defendant's testimony. I have never seen that before in a trial. It seems a little bit weird, but I'll allow it. They are hung on one charge, the first charge. Does that mean that they are not hung on the other 3 charges? I don't know. But it seems like it's an 11-1 hanging. Probably one person holding out saying it's not murder. And no matter what side you're on, you have to be appreciative of one person having the stones to say, no, this is my conviction. I think he did it, or I don't think he did it. But one person who has been in a deliberation room for a little over 12 hours now, I think it is, and they are still man, woman enough to stay with their conviction. Most times you will see, well, okay, let's just go along to get along. But very impressive. I am not doing super fine today. I found out I have a wasp nest in my garden shed, so that's not fun. Hey, Trial Junkie. And Helen from Holland. And Anime. It was great seeing your Legoland video. Hope you had a great time. I was surprised how expensive it has gotten. But like when you broke it down hour by hour, and maybe if you come on the off season where there's not as many people, so you don't have to wait in line for that long, it's probably more fun. But Baby Baker was too young to ride anything, so we were just walking around watching all the fancy little buildings and the aquarium. But we had a great day. Hello, Lorelei. I'm curious what your thoughts of the last note last night from the Valley jury. I have to be honest, I was almost falling asleep because I've been up all day. I've driven a lot and stuff like that. So it was more the conclusion that she allowed them to rewatch. But we can go back and see if I can find the last, because This is the thing about the internet. You can just go back and see what it was, and then we can watch it together, and we can figure out what it. I think this is here 6 hours and 41 minutes. Shut up. And share this tab instead and full screen it. Let's go back and hear what it is. Does it have to be unanimous, or does it become a hung jury mistrial? It does have to be unanimous. The only state, I think, in America where it's not necessary for it to be unanimous is Florida, which I believe is 8-4 in everything except DP trials. And DP trials, I think they have to be unanimous, but maybe they changed that as well. Did I buy anything? I bought the tickets and parking. It's more expensive to buy Lego in Legoland than it is to buy it in my town. I think like somewhere between 12 and 13 hours. Well, yeah. You can't really see her face because it's so big it can't be behind my between on the shelvings. It has to be on top. It is really big. So yeah, but did they change? I thought it was anything but DP. What's been my favorite Lego set to make or to have? I think my Lady Liberty is really cool, but it's a lot of making the same stuff over and over. I really like my Kingfisher. I think that's a beautiful one. I like my Paris one, but that's because it was from the Sergeant Dumb case. So that's why I got that. And I think my Kingfisher is my favorite. I have my roses up there as well. They're also pretty. Why did I do a potentially criminal on you? Well, sometimes you have to learn from the best. But I think it's this much taller than my shelving, and I don't have light on top, so I have to figure that one out. But right now, with all the what's happening, do I move or do I don't move and stuff like that, I'll wait till I buy new stuff. And apparently, I can't be having toys in the background. Oh, I like the temple from the Indiana Jones first one as well. Thank you, Christine, for 20 months. Hey, Kathleen. Let's try and rewatch yesterday's ending.
Counsel, as you are aware, we did receive a note indicating that the jury would like to hear Wall Valley's testimony concerning if he knew Tyler DeSilva was on the street when he returned from the Honda Pilot and they crossed paths. Did he recognize that it was Tyler? The video shows they crossed. Well, that was at 2:52. We have spent some time trying to pinpoint the testimony both in direct as well as cross-examination. It's my understanding that we have an agreement relative to the portion of the testimony that would satisfy, we believe, the jury's inquiry, although it seems to be a little bit unclear, but we've done our best to provide a limited amount of testimony, but broad enough to satisfy what we believe to be their concerns. I'll hear from counsel if you have any questions or concerns relative to the testimony that we're about to provide.
The state has no concerns at this time.
The defense has no concerns on it based on the discussions we had.
Okay, very good. So my intention is to bring them in, acknowledge the note, and then let them know that we are going to play a portion of testimony first, which was a testimony clip from direct examination, to be followed by a clip of testimony from cross-examination. All right, so if we could please turn the jury.
No, it hasn't started yet. It said it would be starting on Lorne and Krim at 9 o'clock, but normally they start at 10. This is from yesterday at roughly an hour before they ended yesterday. The jury asked to see the testimony from Raul Vale and hear his testimony if he recognized that it was his body he crossed paths with when he came back from the car. This is the thing I said I had a problem with. Remember the explanation that he gave was he didn't, as I remember it, he did notice his friend when he came back from the car, but because they were forming a half circle around them, that's when he stabbed the victim or slashed at the victim, but he didn't mean to unalive him. And I said, this is the thing that can be a problem, because when his friend is gone and he claimed that he had to stab to protect him, he's away from the fight. He is also away from the fight. There's an unseen semicircle, but still there's enough room to get out in the back. This would be my biggest hurdle with saying this is pure self-defense. This is why I believe it's manslaughter, because you can only see the victim and Raul and the friend. The video shows it. This is the position with the video camera, and this is the car, and it shows Raul coming back down here while his body is moving up here in the street. And then we have the victim here, which means if he recognized it was him while he moved in here, he would have known that his friend was away from danger and had a clear pathway back to the car. And I think that's the big problem in this case, that even though his friend was away, he re-engaged and is now claiming that he had to do it because he was looking over and seeing his friend getting attacked while he was at the car. That's why he turned around, went back to try and help him. But if he walks past him and recognizes him, and I believe he said so both on direct and on cross, then the self-defense angle is a big problem. And again, you never see that semicircle forming around him, and they have a clear exit. And Connecticut is a not stand your ground. So he would have had to have gone away instead of re-engaging to keep self-defense. I think he was in self-defense with the assaults. They were in a scuffle. He pulled out a knife because he was afraid. I think it's manslaughter, but I think he shouldn't have been charged as an adult. No, this kid is guilty. This kid did stab someone, and I believe it's manslaughter. Yeah, but you still have the video showing the friend being behind him, which takes away, in my opinion, the self-defense. Yeah, but there's no defense of others if the defense of others happened to someone who is not being attacked. As soon as you disengage the combat is over. He re-engages. This is where I think the jury is arguing. Well, I think you can make it work in the big scuffle in the middle where people were stomping on people, kicking people. He's flailing around with the stabulator. I could buy that as self-defense or self-defense of others. Yeah, that's how it works most times. And yeah, it's the same with that kid down in California. Should he have driven as fast as he should and as reckless? Absolutely not. Should he have been charged with 4 murders? No. But someone in the DA's office needs a win, and a big win, because maybe they're having some bad political climate. So we just overcharge the kid. Hey, Inspire. Do we have info on Brian Walsh? I saw the thumbnail. As I said, we are going to rewatch the last hearing. There's nothing new in that case. Yeah, we only have one person on trial right now, and I believe if I had to go into the verdict room, I would vote guilty for manslaughter. I would find him not guilty of assault, because I could buy that is in defense of himself or the other guy, because they were getting pummeled by 5-10 guys. We don't know. There wasn't 30 guys attacking them at once. We can see that they are all just milling about. So I can see someone flailing around with a knife trying to protect themselves. But I would still go manslaughter. Sing first, get the best deal. Your male lawyer has a ponytail, and I'm voting guilty 10 out of 10 times. Morning, everyone. Stephen, this is why you should be on every jury. Well, I am sorry to break it to you. They have taken that right away from you in Connecticut. You have a duty to retreat. No, and that's the big problem. No one has said, not even the defendant, that Jimmy was attacking anyone. He claims he was walking towards him and he had to do it, but he never ever said he raised his arms or anything. The only thing the defense lawyer pointed out was that he was hiking up his pants, which apparently in his world means I'm hiking up my pants and then I'm throwing a hook at you. And I think that's why with the video alone, I would still go manslaughter, because I don't think he intended to. I don't think he had any, because then he could have done it to way more people. The problem is a stabulator is absolutely devastating in close quarters, and accidents do happen in a fight. That's why I believe manslaughter. Why is my stream blurry? I have full connection, good connection. StreamYard or YouTube, or maybe refresh. This is not a Spaniard downstate, so when he got away, he was supposed to keep retreating. Yeah. And again, if he says, okay, I re-engage to help my friend, and Jimmy comes up and I have to fight him off, that's potentially okay, you can help your buddy, but he walks past his body to get to Jimmy. And that's what the jury want to know. Did he know he had passed his body? And I believe he says it on both direct and cross, that yes, Jimmy was behind me. Not Jimmy, his buddy who got the deal. 5-6 years for him and Jack. Fighting kids, 2 years probation for violence. This is probably what you would get in Denmark, 5-6 years for some. No, you'll probably get like 3-4 years in Denmark for something like that. I think he should pay a price, because I don't think he was justified in taking Jimmy's life. But putting him in prison for 60 years is overkill. Yeah, but that's a long way out as well. Yeah, I don't know. I think this is the dumbest username I've ever seen. Yeah, I have it on my tablet, so if anything comes back, but again, they're not supposed to start till 10, I think. Well, there's mandatory time on murders. So I think the mandatory is 20 or 25 years. I'm not sure, but then, and I think that's too much. He's a dumb kid. They were dumb kids. Testosterone and stabulators are a really, really bad thing. I don't know American sentencing enough because in Denmark, the juror does the sentencing. So I kind of know how much does a punch cost, how much does a kick cost, how much does certain stuff cost. But it's very different in America because you have a very in Denmark we have this we better help them mentality. No matter how many times they come back, we are like, oh well, this time if we just sing Kumbaya one more time, they will improve. And America has more of that hard time fixes a lot of problems. In Denmark, there's a lot of uproar because we don't, in the public eye, sentence people harsh enough. And our sentencing guidelines is made by the Superior Court, where we can kind of see, okay, this crime cost this amount of prison. But there's a lot of right now because there's just a guy who unalived his 13-year-old girlfriend, and he got a ridiculously low sentence, according to people in the media. I, of course, have no opinion about that because I'm a layman. I keep that to myself. But there's a lot of people who is beginning to talk about mandatory punishment in Denmark. But the problem with mandatory punishment, the last one we had was for anyone who had a stabulator on them without some reason to use to have it. Like if you were going home from work and you accidentally went into a bar, you got 7 days in prison, mandatory. And they had to change that. So mandatory sentencing, you really have to think about because there's always outliers. Hey, Ocean's daughter, welcome. We are a cute old bunch, but watch out for Sue. Did I buy any? No, I didn't buy anything. It's cheaper to buy in my stores than to buy in Legoland. What is ridiculously low? Well, a murder in Denmark is normally 12 years. That's about as much as a murder gives you. If there's mitigating circumstances, 8 years is not uncommon. It's very, very different. And then you have on civil law as well. U.S. crime rates has been dropping steadily for years, but it's still off the scale. You're also a massive country, and there's a big disparity within your country from rich to poor. You could also do like some countries do, who has a really effective rate with drug addicts. You just give them the we call it the 4 kroner. It'll probably be the 50-cent cure in your money, because if you're a drug addict and get found guilty, you just get old yelled and your family is sent a bill for the funeral. You can do that. That's pretty effective. Not a lot of reoffenders in those cases. I think again on manslaughter. How much is enough in the American system? I don't know, but I would probably cap it off at 10 years with his age and everything. Probably say manslaughter somewhere between 5 and 10 years, with a possibility of parole after 75% or 65%. Better one mistaken worker in jail for a week than released than. Yeah, well, can't get them in there. Well, we do a lot. We see a lot of them as well. Evidence doesn't seem good for Brian Waltz. No, I think he's all the way guilty. But if the judge rules against the Google searches, we're going to get into more of that. We stopped with Yuri Bukaki on the stand last time. If that's thrown out, there's a lot of damning evidence against him gone. There's still circumstantial evidence where you can say, okay, most likely. But circumstantial cases are just that, circumstantial. And circumstantial evidence is evidence, but it's also weak evidence. His deal was and I think that was too much, but that's the same what they did with Karen Reed. They massively overcharged and then gave a stupid deal, and when they said no, they just upped it, which is absolutely stupid. Hey, Irish. Hey, Holly Mac. Hey, Holly. I like it when correction actually means the possibility of rehabilitation. Yeah, again, with a kid this young, sending him away from 60 years, you can just as well old yell at him because he's never going to be a productive member of society. But I can also see it on the other end. This is the 5th time you're coming back and you get into. We had a guy who, in my town, who had one of those claws, metal claws, because he didn't have a hand. And he used that to attack people with. And he kept doing it because I think he was a massive drunk or something. And they couldn't take it away. And again, attacking someone, aggravated assault, yeah, you'll get 3 months or 6 months in prison. And then you go out, do it again. And you can't take his weapon away because, well, it's his human right that he can use it because he doesn't have the mobility of a hand. What does that help? You have the 3 strikes, you're out rule. Is that okay? I think making it progressively harder when they come back is probably a good idea. 3 strikes you're out wouldn't work here in Europe. We don't have the same mentality on punishment, but I think you could absolutely do something with the punishment. We have a scale that if you are a reoffender, you will get extra time put on, but still, some people will. I have people in the 14 years I've been there. I have people I've seen 5 or 6 times. Thank you so much, Holly Mac, for 5 memberships to Sub Rosa, Miami Spice, Bridget, Rosalind Duke, and Watchdog. But punishment is always the hardest part because we don't see things the same way and we have cultural differences. So for some of us, it's way too loose. For some of us, it's way too hard. And someone asked me that I always complain about Massachusetts and their corrupt system. What should they do? And as I said many a time, well, you have to vote. Forget parties and vote for a candidate who will do a change. And that's the same with punishment. If you think they are too lax, well, you have to vote for a hard ass. If you think they're too tough, you have to vote for a soft ass. I don't know. Yeah, but that's his human right because he can't function without it. So we have a lot of rules where, especially the EU courts come in and overrule certain stuff that makes a lot of trouble for the courts. Can we get a live stream of Broken Baker making a custard? I'm not a pastry chef. I am not good with all of that. Ice cream, custards, all of that. That's not something I really do. But thank you for being here for 9 months. That's a baby. 3 strikes and you're out translated to 2 times and you change state. Yeah, that could be that as well. Easy as could also be easy as. Hey, Melissa. Well, we were just waiting for you, so let's get back to Bukkake. Oh,
children that were being utilized. And what was your understanding of Tracy Minor's relationship to Mr. Walsh? My understanding was that Tracy Minor was representing Brian Walsh on a criminal matter out of federal court in Boston.
And when did you start communicating with Attorney Minor?
I began communicating with her in the afternoon hours of January 6th. It was during the 3 o'clock hour, I believe.
yes, I saw this this morning as well. Ex-Trooper Proctor is arguing to the Civil Service Commission that he was wrongfully terminated from the MSP because other MSP troopers do it too, and they weren't. Trooper Proctor will try and get his job back. MSP was out saying, well, we think we did the right thing firing him, but we don't have anything to do with this. We know the police union thinks that people were unlawfully not unlawfully, but there was no reason for them to be fired over the Karen Read case. So the union will try and make them take Trooper Proctor back. Because if you didn't watch my video screaming about Massachusetts, I think yesterday, Massachusetts, you have a massive problem. And one of the biggest problems are badges covering badges.
And how were you communicating with her?
Via cell phone call communication.
Do you know roughly how many phone calls you had with Attorney Minor?
I had numerous communications. To the best of my estimate, probably three phone calls.
And so what did you ask Attorney Minor in the first conversation, if you remember?
In the first conversation, I identified myself and asked her to provide consent for Brian Walsh's phones. At that point, I had knowledge of at least 2 devices, the one that was missing, that was located on the second, and then the 6-year-old cell phone.
Okay, so to be clear, you say the one that was missing that was located in the second, who did you believe that cell phone belonged to?
Brian Walsh.
And the second device, what was that device that you were concerned about?
That was a device that contacted Diana with a missed call on the call log, and it was also now present inside Brian Walsh's vehicle in the SUV.
What did you say to Attorney Minor that you wished to do to these devices?
I stated that we wish to do a full system extraction, phone dump, more commonly used as a phone, known as a phone dump of those devices for digital evidence data.
And what reservations did Attorney Minor express to you in the first conversation?
She stated she needed to talk to her client, and she would call me back.
And did you explain anything else you were looking for at this point in time?
No, I did not.
So how long did it take for Attorney Minor to contact you back?
It was somewhere between 5-10 minutes, maybe a little more than 15 minutes, but I did receive a call from her within a short period of time.
And what happened in this next phone call?
She stated that it would be fine to.
I think it was it his mom or her mom who bought it? There was someone who had bought tablets and phones. And and I think all the kids had phones. It's redonkulous. This trial is fruit salad from the poisonous tree. Thank you, Yuri. Now the dumbest criminal ever can walk off into the sunset. Well, I think we have to calm our tits a little bit because there's still circumstantial evidence. The digital evidence might be tainted. Some of the findings might be tainted, but I still think that there could potentially be enough there. But yeah, congratulations, Massachusetts. These are the guys you hired. And this guy didn't get fired. Did he lose 3 or 6 vacation days and then he got transferred this weekend? After, funny thing, when did Yuri Bukkake get transferred? Right after a lot of the big LawTube channels had shown this. So even though I know we are just poor grifters who will do anything for money, I think that we actually, well, not me, because I'm showing it after he's moved, but Melanie Little covering it with, I can't remember how many thousands of people watching it. I think that makes politicians and higher ups a little nervous right now.
They would consent to the extractions. They just
Our titlets.
wanted it documented, and she requested a documentation to be generated.
And was there any limitations on the digital, was there any limitations on what you were allowed to look at?
Yes, it was communicated verbally in our agreement that we were not to look at attorney-client communications prior to December 25th, 2022, and no communications between Anna and Brian Walsh prior to that date as well.
Besides those two issues, was there anything else that you were not allowed to look at when you spoke to Attorney Minor?
No,
Did you tell Attorney, and so during this conversation, was there mention of any other devices you wish to look at?
yes, after we made the agreement for the 2 cell phones mentioned, I also requested that the iPad, which we knew was manipulated by Anna prior to her leaving the home, would also be included within the devices that were consented to.
Did you explain why you wanted to look at that iPad?
I did not know.
Why did you want to look at that iPad?
Well, if Anna manipulated the device and fixed it during the time frame that we were advised, there would be a digital footprint on the device documented that manipulation.
And to be specific,
Didn't he say the kid had told him she just opened up the phone, pushed in the code? Oh, there's a digital footprint. No, there's not. If she just hit 1, 2, 3, 4 to open up, that's not a digital footprint. That's just an unlock. Shady, shady. All the cops in Massachusetts is shady as F.
what iPad are you referring to that Anna manipulated?
It was the iPad that the 6-year-old saw on the island as he came downstairs after hearing a noise and waking up, and he picked it up and had his mom fix for him.
Why was that footprint significant to you in your investigation into the disappearance of Anna Walsh?
It would have really narrowed down the timeline of when Anna left the home. It was in a short period of time after the device was manipulated that we were told Anna got dressed and left the home.
Had you had any access to that iPad before this conversation?
No,
And so when you were speaking to the oldest child, he never showed it to you or anything like that?
no, he did not.
Now, besides the 2 areas that you had agreed upon with Attorney Minor, which was attorney-client contact and anything before December 25th with the defendant and his wife, she asked for what?
A documentation of the agreement that we verbally discussed and agreed upon.
And what did you do to document the agreement?
Communications were had with Norfolk District Attorney, First Assistant Lynn Beelan, and she drafted an email including those specific restrictions of the full data extraction, digital evidence analysis in an email form and sent it to Attorney Minor and CC'd me on it as well.
What memory do you have of expressing these concerns to First Assistant Beeland at the time?
I do not have a memory of communicating with First Assistant Beelan.
So do you know how First Assistant Beeland knew to send the email?
I do not know.
Your Honor, may I approach?
You may.
Sergeant, do you recognize that document I've just handed you?
Yes, I do.
What is the document I've just handed to you?
It's a copy of a printed out email exchange between Attorney Minor, which I'm CC'd on, and First Assistant Lynn Beelan.
What the hell's going on in the other courtroom? Oh, it stopped.
In their communications.
And does that document, is that after you had had the conversations with Attorney Minor?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, I'd ask it just be marked as the next exhibit, and I know that I've fouled up the order, but it is in the binder. And I think it was attached to the defense pleadings as well.
All right.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And what number do you think it is?
So.
I
on
think
on my
that's the
listing, I
one
have it
missing he
as
talked
exhibit
about.
13.
Number 13. You know what he's talking about, Attorney Tipton? Then do you have any objection to that?
that thing with access to tablets and phones, we all have these high and mighty ideals that, oh, we shouldn't. But yesterday, when Baby Baker is not fond of driving cars, or riding in cars, I should say. He's only allowed to drive it on closed lots. Yeah, his mom found something stupid to play for him just to keep him occupied. She's really good at not doing it when they're at home, but sometimes it's a godsend. My brother, on the other hand, he looks more at his phones than his kid does. So kids do. So they've learned very young to just sit and watch tablet all the time. I don't think that's a good idea. That's why I had a mandatory 1 hour read where they had to read a book when I had my kids with me. They got phones at like 5th grade or something like that. But I would take like a egg. You call them egg timers. We call them egg watches. Set an hour on it, put it in their room, give them a book and say, you're going to read for an hour. And I took away their phones and their remote control for the television. Just because we are addicted. I'm yelling at people on Twitter all day long.
All right.
I feel a little bit better right now that he knows what I'm talking about, which is great. So, Sergeant, if I may ask, could you read the first email into the record of that chain? First is, who is the sender?
The sender is Lynn Beeland.
Who are the recipients?
I
It is
never
addressed
heard Baby
to
Shark.
Tracy Minor, and I am CC'd on that email.
What is the date and time of the email?
The date is January 6th of 2023, and the time is 3:39 p.m.
And can you read the body of the email?
Yes, sir. Attorney Minor, as requested, the Norfolk District Attorney's Office agrees that in the investigation to Anna Walsh, any conversation between the attorney and client Brian Walsh is excluded from the search and examination of Brian Walsh's phone and the minor child's iPad. It is further agreed that any conversation between Brian Walsh and his wife, Anna Walsh, 1 week before she was missing, 12/25/22 and prior, shall be excluded from the search and examination of Brian Walsh's phone and the minor child's iPad. Should you have any questions, please contact me, Lynn Beelan, First Assistant District Attorney, Norfolk County, and the phone number.
And just for the record, when you say minor child, you are putting that in there opposed to reading the child's name.
Yes, sir.
Now, was there a response to that email that's in the chain?
Yes, there is.
What can you read the response, sir?
The response is, we consent to all communications on or after 12/25. If you want to go back further than that, I will have to get you a list of attorneys, as he has used a bunch of them.
And is there a subsequent response to that?
Yes, there is.
And can you read that into the record?
That date is fine, thank you.
And that was sent from whom?
That was sent from Lynn Beelan.
Did you receive any further email communication from Attorney First Assistant Beeland and Minor after that third entry into the email chain?
I have not known.
Now, once that was done, those emails have been exchanged. What did you do as far as trying to get the iPads or trying to get the devices?
I didn't do anything about trying to get the devices.
Why didn't you go get them?
I was tasked with traveling out of state, and I was not going to be present.
Where were you supposed to go as a result of traveling out of state?
I was traveling to Washington, D.C.
Why were you going to Washington, D.C.?
The information we had at the time and the multiple reports of Anna coming from D.C., living in D.C., and having traveled back to D.C. Based on my conversation with Diana Walsh, I traveled to D.C. to go find Anna.
Make sure you balance your juice so females with that white jaw, when they get too much testosterone, that's not a good look. But go hit the gym with some juice. Of course, not medical advice.
You meet up with anyone in law enforcement to help you in D.C.?
Yes.
This case is about the disappearance of Anna Walsh. Anna Walsh was married to Brian Walsh. She was from Serbia, I think. Different rumors was she having an affair? Was he having an affair? We don't know that much about it, but she disappeared in Now I have to. She disappeared between the 1st and the 4th of January 2023. And he claimed she was going to Washington, D.C. She was a real estate manager and was working with some buildings in Washington. That's also kind of suspicious because some fake FBI agents and some real FBI agents have some. It's a whole lot of wormhole. Brian said she left for Washington to work. It was a work emergency, and he reported her missing on the 4th of January. But there's no evidence of her taking a plane or getting an Uber. That's what he said happened. There's a blood and a broken knife that was found in their basement. His car is seen deposing heavy bags of trash, and he's purchasing, well, the murder kit, tarps, buckets, a hacksaw at Home Depot. So that's pretty good circumstantial evidence. The problem is, as we are trying to see in this hearing, is how did they obtain his digital records? And that's the big problem in this case. Trooper Proctor has been a part of the team. We all know Yuri Bukaki, who is also a good friend of us from the Karen Read case. And because they claim that on his devices he had made searches like how to dispose a body, how to dismember, how long before a body starts to smell, and hacksaw, best tool to dismember. So that's pretty damning against him. But defense claims that the evidence they obtained, and this is why they asked about what the scope of the evidence was, or the scope of the searches was, they claimed that it was outside of the scope that they agreed upon. So if that is true, you can't bring it to court because it's illegally obtained evidence, and you can't use that in a court against him. And because of Michael Proctor's firing and conduct during the Karen Read investigation, they want to see the internal goings on in the police department, because is there bias in this case as well? He was already convicted in a federal art fraud. He claimed he had some Andy Warhol pictures, and he sold a fake. He was sentenced to 3 years in prison and had to pay roughly $500,000. So this hearing is about the digital evidence. Is it allowed in or is it not allowed in? That's the big old breakdown I can give you. I don't think she was a mail order bride. I think she was quite successful. Look at him. I'd sleep around too. Hey, just because I'm ugly, I need love as well. Innocent. Well, so far. Well, I gave the quick summary of this case. I made similar searches after watching some Narcos, Sopranos, or whatever. My phone will doom me for sure, just a matter. How do you think I'm looking if they would ever look into my phone when I try to enter America? How long do you have to, how long sentence for murder in Connecticut? How long for murder in Florida? It looks like I'm trying to plan the easy escape. And again, for mail order bride, then he got the good one because she was the one making money. He was a failure.
It was Detective Lieutenant Lopes and 2 troopers from another unit on the state police.
Now, so after the email exchange comes through,
Oh, that's
who do you
always
inform
nice.
that you've now received permission from Attorney Minor.
I informed Lieutenant Fan.
This is why Brandon doesn't have a life insurance policy, because he doesn't want to tempt his wife.
And who is Lieutenant Fanning in the chain of command of the detectives unit?
He was the executive officer at the time in the unit.
And where were you when you informed Lieutenant Fanning?
I was in the command post.
And where was the command post located?
It was located a short distance down the street from 516 Chief Justice Cushing Highway in a shopping plaza parking lot behind the stores.
Now, when you confirmed Lieutenant Fanning, were you talking to him in person, or was this over the phone, or whatnot?
It was in person.
So, at the command post on the late afternoon of Friday, January 6th, how many state troopers were in and around this area at this point in time?
There were dozens and dozens.
And so, are you aware of who collected the devices from Brian Walsh on January 6th?
I am not aware now.
So you didn't go to collect the devices.
No, I did not.
When did you return from Washington, D.C.?
It was during the late evening hours of January 8th. It was Sunday, I believe, if I'm not mistaken on the date.
And did you have
And have you noticed something else? His English is vastly better. And this is actually right around the same time he testified in the Karen Reed case, where he didn't understand the word theory. But no problems understand English here.
any further conversation with Attorney Minor about the devices after the phone calls and the emails?
No, I did not.
So after the email chain is done, do you have any further phone calls?
No,
And to be specific, with Attorney Minor?
no.
And going back to the second phone call, you told Attorney Minor that you wanted to look at the iPad.
Yes.
And can you just tell us what you told her about wanting to look at the iPad?
The conversation about the extractions, the full data extraction, was in reference to the two cell phones. We went into detail about that. Once she consented to those cell phones, I asked if we could also do the same with the iPad.
Was there any concerns about communications on the iPad?
No, there was not.
Did you explain to her whose iPad it was?
Yes, I did.
And when you explained to her, who did you tell was the user of the iPad?
I told her that based on my understanding, it was the 6-year-old juvenile.
And did you tell her did you tell her anything further about the use of the iPad and why you were looking at it?
No, I did not.
One moment, Your Honor.
Yes?
Thank you, Your Honor. Nothing further, Your Honor.
Ross?
Now the good part. No, the court is, the feed is up, and I heard someone banging on calm down, on some wood or a door or something, but nothing's happening. I have it. Oh, I have it on standby. So if anything happens, we'll switch over. Yes, they never found the body. Well, he just called him juvenile, and that's funny because all the other times he called him the oldest kid. Yeah, and this is because he knows he effed up, but let's hear what the defense can get out of him. How are we doing? Haven't been to the gym in a while because I was in Legoland yesterday.
Good afternoon, sir.
For direct examination, you described your interaction with Diane Walsh.
Yes, sir.
And so you were involved in interviewing Diana Walsh along with the 6-year-old son.
Portions of it, yes.
You say portions of it, what portions?
The 6-year-old was not present during the entire
We just started the cross-examination of him.
interview with Diana.
But you were present for the entire interview with Diana Walsh.
I was.
You didn't have any involvement in the interview of Mr. Walsh on January 5th.
No, not the official interview. I just introduced myself and met him. Brief communication verbally, not a formal interview.
Did you arrive at the home at the same time with the other officers who eventually did conduct an interview with Mr. Walsh on January 5th?
If I'm not mistaken, we all arrived together. Yes, sir.
So you were sitting, is it fair to say that during these two different interviews, you were in different rooms?
Yes, we were separated. The two rooms are separated by the stairwell or staircase and a wall, I believe, in the home. That's right in the middle of the building. But there's a open space for the front and the rear through the kitchen.
It's fair to say then that there were times during these interviews that you could hear people asking Mr. Walsh questions, correct?
To be accurate, because we were having our own conversation, I merely heard voices. I could not hear the specifics of their conversation or who was speaking.
Well, he doesn't need it in this trial.
And it's entirely accurate, isn't it, to say that the entire time that you talked to Diane Walsh, that Mr. Walsh, Mr. Brian Walsh, he was never present for any of that, correct?
With our conversation, sir? No, he was not.
So when you were asked all these questions on direct examination, and you were describing the behaviors of Diane Walsh as you interpreted them, it's fair to say that Mr. Walsh had nothing to do with any of those behaviors of Diane Walsh that you were observing.
Are you asking if he was influencing her behavior?
Yeah.
I could not suggest that, no.
And I mean, she is the grandmother of this young, the 6-year-old that you were also talking to, right?
That's my understanding, yes, sir.
And this 6-year-old was telling you in his own words what he remembered about seeing his mother, correct?
Yes, the information of his recollection was in his own words.
And when you were asked questions on direct examination about the iPad, fixed it, you used the word manipulation, right?
That is a term I use, yes.
Okay. You don't have any specific knowledge about what you characterized as the manipulation of the iPad.
The knowledge I have is that I was told she fixed the device for him. Diana said that the button was broken. Those types of manipulations of the device, in my training experience, would be logged within the database on the device.
But based on that information that you just told the court, when Diane Walsh mentioned a button, what button was it?
She didn't specify.
Okay. And it's fair to say that you didn't make any effort to see if the button was now working or whatever button she was referring to was working, correct?
Correct, I did not see, no.
So you really don't know, do you, at the time, that the iPad was in fact not working, or if it just didn't come on? You really don't know. You're just going on the fact that Diane Walsh said something about a button wasn't working.
It was the child's information that he passed along to us and what Diana shared as well.
And the only question that you testified to, that you asked Diana Walsh, or, I'm sorry, that you asked the 6-year-old was something to the effect that you know where your mother is and you know where your mother went. That was when Diane Walsh interjected and made a comment, correct?
That specific question, she interrupted my full question, so I could not ask the full question. The question was interrupted.
Now, it's fair to say that you haven't been trained in interviewing young juvenile children, correct?
I don't have specific training for young juvenile children, but I am trained in interviews and interrogations.
Right, but you would agree that there are people that are trained specifically to interview young children, correct?
I am aware that there are specialists that conduct SANE interviews.
And you are aware of the fact that eventually on January 5th, there was an agreement to have the young child, the 6-year-old, interviewed by a trained specialist, correct?
I'm not certain of the date when the agreement happened, but
This wouldn't fly in Denmark. I said it when we watched it the other day, when he said he talked to the 6-year-old. That would never fly in Denmark. Never. You have trained specialists for one purpose: to make sure you don't put ideas in the head of the kids and they say, well, grandma said this, so I better say it again, or the police officer really wants me to say this, so I'll just do it. You never, ever use some blobfish-looking man to talk to a 6-year-old without making sure everything is tape recorded and they have done all the correct procedures first. This was the first thing that really struck me, was you don't talk to a 6-year-old unless you're one of the special investigators. I don't know if that's enough to kick it out.
I am aware that there was an agreement to do something like that along those lines.
And that would be done by someone in Norfolk, correct?
And to again, I'm not a lawyer, but does he then use this conversation to get the iPad because the kid told him that the mom had manipulated the iPad, and that's why he wanted the iPad? Yeah, that should probably be chalked out as well.
In fact, I think the office that they use is in Norfolk, correct? Do you know that?
I am not aware of the location outside of Foxborough, but I could be wrong.
And you would agree, wouldn't you, that in your experience, it's not unusual, is it, for a parent or grandparent to protect their child or grandchild from certain questions that they think may upset them?
No, I wouldn't say that it's unusual that a child or a parent or a grandparent would do something like that. No.
If I understand your direct examination and some of your questions, and please correct me if I'm wrong. You did or you did not have any conversation with Assistant District Attorney Lynn View regarding any supposed.
AJ also get innocent people found not guilty, even though the state has done whatever they can to try and get them convicted. That's a good defense lawyer. You should call a good defense lawyer. I would recommend never, ever calling Hank Brennan because, first of all, he'll switch to the other side for enough money. And second of all, he's really, really bad at his job. So AJ, yes, even if you are guilty and want to try and get as lenient a sentence as possible, or even maybe get off if you're lucky, maybe if you can raise reasonable doubt, like in this case, call a great defense attorney because that's your right as a defendant. Never ever call a shitty special prosecutor who will most likely end you in prison because he has the likability of a human blobfish like Yuri Bukaki.
I don't have a memory of talking to Lynn Beal on the phone about the agreement.
And it's fair to say that you've been asked by the Commonwealth in this case to search your records, your emails, whatever.
No, you don't get, you're not found innocent. Barbara, I know you're just a troll coming in because, hey, let's stir it up. Karen Read is found not guilty. And by being found not guilty, what is the rule? What's the first thing that Bev read to them? I know all you aunties, you kind of just pretend not to understand these words. Innocent until proven guilty. When found not guilty, are you then proven guilty? No. Well, she's factually guilty. How about the tail light embedded in the clothes? Go talk to Towel. I heard he has some big news. He found Hoffa. So go hang out with the rest of the short bus. We have moved on. All of you idiots should do the same. I feel sorry for you that your entire life has been built around getting an innocent woman put in prison just because you don't like Turtle Boy. It's okay that you don't like a person. You don't have to hate him enough that you want another person put in prison. Move on. Life goes on. Go outside, touch grass, smell the roses. Don't look at the sun, even though it's big and bright. I know some of you on that side could potentially do that. It'll hurt your eyes. And then come back, calm down, and get a life. You don't have to hang out in everyone's chat and say, hey, she's guilty. She's innocent because she was not proven guilty. Well, she's factually guilty. Yeah, well, she's not going to be found factually guilty. Now she's found not guilty. Move on. It doesn't change anything. Well, there will be a new trial against her. Don't listen to twisted strategies because she's even dumber than Plevin. So thank you so much for joining my TED Talk. See you later.
For any such evidence of communicating with Assistant District Attorney Lynn Beal regarding this agreement, correct?
I have been asked, yes.
And you conducted that search and you found nothing.
conversations over the phone. I don't have a conversation over the phone specifically in reference to the.
No, you can't call Sue an asshat.
The agreement.
So
But
you-
the email is produced. I'm CC'd on it.
Right, but you don't know about the content of any conversation between Assistant District Attorney Lynn Beaver and Attorney Tracy Minor regarding that agreement.
I do not know that, no.
And it's fair to say that you never attempted to contact Lynn Beaver to make sure that you understood what the parameters were of any agreement, did you?
I did not contact Lynn Beelan.
Barbara, let me make this 100% because I don't think you understand a lot. If Karen Reed has been found guilty on the evidence we see, there would have been no justice for John O'Keefe. Do you know why? Because the cops we hate didn't do their jobs. They're not worthy of the badge they're carrying. They're not worthy of the responsibility the state have given them because they did no basic steps that they need to do in an investigation. They didn't care enough for John O'Keefe to make sure to preserve the crime scene, to collect evidence, to investigate the crime like any other crime, to canvass the neighborhood for videos, go all the way over the route that Karen Reed has. There's more investigation done in the Brian Walsh case than there was for a fellow cop. I like cops. I hate dirty cops. You should too. The sad thing is, you don't like Turtle Boy. So you will buy whatever shit these people sell you. You probably think that it's okay that Proctor was looking for nudes. You probably think that it's okay Krusty Panties sits and say, well, Alan Jackson has a sexual thing for leaky balloon nuts because you think it's funny. Because this is the humor you aunties like. I despise bad cops. I despise the treatment John O'Keefe got from the Canton PD and from the MSP. I wish all of you aunties were smart enough to see this is not how you treat a cop. You don't botch his investigation. You don't do what they do. You don't hire a special prosector and waste maybe $1 million on him fumbling his way through another trial when you lost the first one. You're the one who is willing to close your eyes and let bad cops do bad stuff because you hate Aiden. Move on, get over it. We have nothing against cops here. Well, some of us does, but hey, Brandon, you're going to beat that felony. The things we don't like are bad cops. What we don't like is injustice. What we don't like is idiots who will excuse everything just because they hate an online journalist. You should not be allowed to vote because you can't handle that responsibility. I'm sorry. You really need to grow up. You really need to move on. It's been 3 weeks. Karen Reed is not found guilty. She can't be tried again. And justice will never come for John O'Keefe because the cops we hate didn't do their job. That's why everyone is being removed or fired. But you will cover for them. You will sit and say, well, they're decorated dudes. You want to sit and tell me that the blobfish Yuri Bukaki is a great cop. The guy who went around harassing people over rubber duckies, but couldn't even care enough to make sure they didn't botch John's investigation or the Brian Walsh investigation. You want to tell me I hate cops? Yeah, I hate cops like Yuri Bukaki because he should be fired. Any police department that has a guy like him running around botching investigation after investigation using his power to harass people over free speech. They should be fired, and they should have people like, well, maybe they shouldn't kill the good cops at the police academy. Well, you just hate cops. Oh, I hate bad cops. You should too. You give them all the power in the world. And how do they use it? By saying, our good friend, brother in blue died. Yeah, let's not do an investigation. Let's just crackheads get a better investigation than John O'Keefe. You should be absolutely horrid that this happened to John O'Keefe. If you wanted true justice for John O'Keefe, you would be on our team saying, these cops, they didn't do a good enough job. You don't have to love Karen Read. You don't have to believe in her innocence, but you have to agree these cops fucked everything up by doing a shitty job. If you can't do that, then you don't care about justice. You only care about sitting online and being a troll, and you really need to grow up. Don't hate cops. Hate bad cops. Hate every police department that allows this to go on and on and on and on and on. Hate cops who unalive pregnant young women. Hate cops who grape 13-year-old boys. Do that every day. Don't come at me with, oh, you don't want justice. I fucking hate everyone we have learned about from Massachusetts who have done horrible things. And what do all you aunties do? You sit there and say, they're decorated dudes. Karen Read is guilty. Why are you not fighting for justice? Are you going to fight for Sandra Birchmore? Or are you just going to say, hey, shit happens? D.A. Morrissey isn't fighting for her. He's not bringing state charges. That was a 2-in-1 murder. You don't care. I hate cops. You should hate these cops. But you don't, because you don't give two fucks about anything. You're just sitting here because, oh, I'm smart. I can make them see how Karen is guilty. Microscopic tail light in the... And sit on a cactus. Sorry, Chip.
The email spoke for itself.
Well, you testified here today that, for instance, you just answered a question on direct examination, that the iPad had no limitations put on, like the search of the iPhone.
Yes. Who was the only one that all the aunties hated? Barrows. Why? Because he didn't lie. He told the truth. If the truth was the tail light was that busted, Trooper Proctor would have taken a picture of it. But how could he? They didn't have cameras. He has his fucking phone. But you hated Barrows because he told the truth. Deaver told the truth until they pressured her. And then she had memory issues. Yeah. Love all cops? Oh, fuck no. Support the good cops, but always remember they have all the power, and a lot of them uses it wrong.
Correct?
Rephrase the question.
Were there any limitations put on any search of the iPad?
Those search limitations were included in the email, and it referenced all devices that we were going to get on consent.
Now, you've also told us that your discussions with Attorney Tracy Minor involved discussing and seizing cell phones, correct?
Yes, there were 2 cell phones, as I mentioned prior, and the iPad that we were aware of.
And regarding the 2 cell phones, we can all agree that one of them was purportedly Mr. Walsh's personal cell phone, and the other cell phone was the one in the Volvo that was attributed to the young 6-year-old, correct?
No, because my rule is chat has to be nice to each other. It's only me you can yell at because Jamie does it all the time. And Sue, but that's Sue.
Yes, sir.
There is no reference in the email that you've referred to today to a second cell phone, is there?
I'd have to take a look at the email, but my understanding through our communications, myself and Tracy Minor were for 2 cell phones and the 6-year-old's iPad.
Well, I understand that's your memory. I'm asking you that with regards to the email that's been introduced into evidence, there's no reference to a second cell phone, is there?
Yes, based on my reviewing of that email content, there's no reference of a second phone.
And there's no reference to anything other than Brian Walsh's cell phone in that email.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question again, please?
There's no reference to any other cell phone other than Brian Walsh's cell phone in that email agreement.
It talks about the 6-year-old's iPad.
Right, but there's no reference to a
Look what he's. All of a sudden, he don't speak English anymore. He clearly said on direct, yeah, it was for the 2 cell phones and the iPad. Now, oh, it wasn't. Well, yeah, but it says iPad. It's not that hard to comprehend what he's asking you.
second cell phone or any other cell phone in that email agreement.
That is correct.
And in fact, there's certainly nothing about all of the minor children's cell phones.
That's correct.
There's reference in that email to one iPad, correct?
Yes.
And there's no reference to more than one iPad in that email, is there?
Just the 6-year-old's iPad.
No, one phone and one iPad is what they had, or whatever pad it is. Oh, jinx.
Sergeant, it's fair to say that you wrote a report where you were discussing this agreement.
Yes, it is. Yes.
And did you review that report before you testified here today on direct examination?
I did review it. Yes.
And it's fair to say that in that report, you make reference to an agreement that encompassed, quote, his cell phones in regard to Brian Walsh. And you use the cell phones plural, correct? In your report.
I believe that's right, if you're not mistaken.
Do you have that report with you?
I don't have it here with me now.
And if you need to refresh your memory, just tell us. But you also, in that report, make specific reference to the agreement encompassed his minor children's, plural, cell phones, correct?
I'd have to take a look at the report, sir.
May I approach you?
Yes.
I'd ask you to read that.
Yes, it does.
To refresh your memory, in fact, you make reference to cell phones plural when it comes to Mr. Walsh's cell phone.
Yes, it does.
Does it refresh your memory that in fact you made reference to all the children's cell phones?
Yes.
Does it refresh your memory that it referred to the children's iPad?
Yes.
Is it also fair to say that at the end of that report, you make specific reference that, quote, the agreement is attached to this report?
Yes, sir.
And the agreement we're talking about is what's already been introduced in evidence, right?
That is correct, sir.
It's fair to say that that agreement that was introduced in evidence does not refer to multiple cell phones, multiple iPads, correct?
That is correct, sir.
And in fact, you said on direct examination that you had some conversation with Fanning, and Fanning can arrange to pick up the devices, correct?
No, we are on verdict watch still. Nothing has happened in that courtroom. Even they haven't even come in and said the jury is going back to deliberate. Normally they do that every morning, but nothing has happened today. I have it on my tablet down by my side. If anything happens, yesterday they asked to be allowed to rewatch part of the defendant's statement on both direct and cross, and they were allowed to do that, which I've never seen before. But they have been hung for, I think it's between 13 and 14 hours now. They came back within 2.5 hours and said they were hung on one charge. They have been hung on that ever since. So I don't know if they agree on the 3 of them and they are just hung on the charge 1, manslaughter, murder, or they never ever moved on from that. So we are hung like a horse.
That's correct.
Are you aware of the fact that Fanning has written a report about what he went to pick up?
I am not aware now.
Did you talk to Fanning about what he had gone to pick up and what in fact he did pick up?
No, I never spoke to exactly what he picked up.
So you don't know that when Fanning went to Mr. Walsh's house to pick up devices pursuant to the agreement, he only needed to pick up one cell phone and one iPad, correct? Or do you know?
Oh,
I don't know what
Thank
he
you,
actually
Jamie.
picked up. I communicated 2 cell phones on an iPad.
And my question is, though, that you apparently don't know that based on the conversation he had with you at the command post, that he thought he was only supposed to pick up one cell phone and one iPad. You don't know that, do you?
I never questioned Lieutenant Fanning on what he picked up.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
No objection.
22. Marked in a minute as Exhibit 22.
Specifically, Sergeant,
Jamie has the link, but she doesn't love me anymore. So
in that report that now is Exhibit 22, you specifically say the agreement was put into writing by Norfolk District Attorney's First Assistant Lynn Beelan, correct?
Yes, I do.
The agreement, you're referring to the email that's been introduced into evidence, correct?
That is correct.
There's nothing in the agreement that uses the phrase marital privilege, is there?
No, sir.
There's nothing in your conversations that you put in your
it's
report
not fat enough.
that was to document this agreement. There's no reference to marital privilege, is there?
I'm sorry. There was two things you asked about. There was no mention of marital privilege outside of the statement about excluding communications between Anna.
This is on 1.25, just so you know. This is how slow he is on 1.25. I have sped up because he's unlistenable when he's speaking at his normal pace.
And Brian Walsh.
And the phrase marital privilege does not appear in your report that's been introduced as Exhibit 22.
No,
And it doesn't appear in the quote agreement email that's been introduced in it.
that statement does not appear now.
I think it's called the dynamite charge or dynamite speak or something. She mentioned it before that she given them the light version of it, but yeah, it's the go back and do your job, and at some point she has to give it. This is the last time I'm going to chuck you back, so better do your job right this time. And I think it's ridiculous. They have come back hung 3 times now. So she should already have read them the riot act, kind of like in the Karen Reed trial. Move on. And a great question, Anime. Will the state retry Lido with the exact same charges? I think someone asked yesterday, but they didn't want to talk about it.
And the only thing that is referenced, the only subject matter that's referenced in the email agreement is quote communications.
That's the only subject matter that needed to be carved out of the full extraction.
That wasn't my question. My question was the only subject matter that is referenced in the agreement is communication.
Yes, sir.
Do you know, Sergeant, do you know when Mr. Walsh first talked to Tracy Minor, his attorney, about the request to search his phone?
I have no idea.
And do you know, Sergeant Lieutenant, when Tracy Minor, Attorney Tracy Minor, and Assistant District Attorney Lynn Beal first began discussing the request to search Mr. Walsh's phone?
I would strictly be speculating when they first began. My only knowledge is to the email being sent from Lynn.
Have you talked to Assistant District Attorney, now retired, Lynn Beal, regarding this agreement prior to this hearing?
I have no memory of talking to her about this agreement.
So the government, the Commonwealth, has not asked you to go talk to retired Assistant District Attorney Lynn Beal and say, what did you and Attorney Tracy Minor agree to? You haven't been asked to do that.
No, sir.
It's not a blowfish, it's a blobfish. He is a blobfish. That's fine. Corporate wants you to tell the difference between these two pictures. It's the same. Look, when you paint hair on it, it's exactly the same person. I don't know what's wrong with his upper lip, but it kind of looks like my grandma when she took out her dentures. It looks like he doesn't have his upper teeth.
It's fair to say that there are consent to search forms used routinely by the Mass State Police, correct?
Yes, sir.
And those consent to search forms, they require information to be entered on the form. It includes the person giving consent and the officer taking the consent, correct?
Yes, it is.
And they also include an area where you describe what is going to be searched, correct?
There's detailed explanation on the forms, yes.
And it's signed and dated by the person giving consent and a witness, correct?
Yes, sir.
And the reason for this is to make sure that people understand what consent was given, that it was given voluntarily, and what the parameters of any consent were, correct?
That is the purpose behind us reading those consent forms to the individuals we're getting the consent from.
And you didn't use one in this case.
No, sir.
And it's fair to say that you certainly had an opportunity to use one because you were at the home on January 5th, 2023, prior to any consent being given and any agreement being made, correct?
I was at the home at that point. I did not ask for consent on the 5th.
But yeah, moving on.
You may.
I'm going to show you a document, and it's document is based.
Yeah, I've met a few of those.
It's fair to say that that is an accurate representation of the consent to search form that's used by the Mass State Police.
Although it does appear as a form that's generated by the state police, that's not the form we use. So I can't represent that this is what we would have used.
What is different? What is different from that form you're looking at now and the form that you say would be used by the Mass State Police?
Well, there's a lot of different characteristics of the form itself, just the way it appears, the way it's presented, the bottom portion as well. It's just slightly different.
Can I ask
It's slightly different, but it's massively different. And this is a standard form, and that's not the one we use. A standard form is a standard form because it's standard that you use that form. And you have that standard so you know that when you're being questioned, that it's filled out correctly. Because this is what your department have made after 25,000 lawyers have questioned them about the forms they've used previously.
you then, Sergeant Lieutenant, is it fair to say that that form?
He looks like a blobfish.
Substance, whatever form you're referring to, the consent assertion, would have included exactly what that form's asking for. Name of the person giving consent, a witness to sign on it, informing the person of their right to refuse consent, but also listing what and describing what is to be searched.
I would agree with you, yes.
So with that caveat, I would move to introduce.
Your Honor, I object. If the council wants, I'm happy to get a copy of their form. They're ready.
Why don't we do that? That's the form that they actually might be using now as opposed to that form. There's no dispute with regard to the contents of the form. He didn't fight you on that. He agrees with you. It's an evidence. You don't need the form that he's not familiar with.
And I'll get blank one and we'll sit through this.
That sounds terrific.
I did ask for it, but I didn't know.
You asked for what, on what? Oh, previously?
I apologize to council. I have no memory of asking for it. I will make sure
We
that.
can reach agreement on this, I'm sure.
I like this judge a lot.
With regards to the agreement, there's nothing in the agreement email that has been produced as an exhibit that references anything about search histories, correct?
No, that specific term is not in the email.
And there's nothing in the email about location data, correct?
That's correct.
And once again, the only subject matter that's referenced in that email agreement is quote communications, correct?
Yes, as what to be excluded, yes.
Well, when you say what to be excluded, it's just, and, I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but this will be my last question on this particular subject. The email agreement makes reference to what communications will be limited, and it makes specific reference to certain attorney-client conversations, communications, and communications between Mr. Walsh and Anna Walsh, correct?
That is what to be limited during the search and analysis of the device's data.
It certainly doesn't say, does it? Anywhere in that agreement that the agreement is that everything that's downloaded can be reviewed and analyzed, correct? Doesn't say that in the agreement.
It does not specify that.
And it's important, isn't it? Just like that form that you were talking about a moment ago, it's important, isn't it, to be very specific in any written agreement as to what the terms of the agreement are, right?
It's important to understand what is being done. Our verbal communications mentioned phone extractions. That means all of the data on the phone, and what was to be limited based on our verbal communication, then subsequently put into email form, was the communications between client and attorney and Mr. and Mrs. Walsh.
But that's the way you're interpreting the content of this email that you did not write and did not respond to. That's fair, isn't it?
For the latter portion, yes, I did not write this email, nor did I respond to it. But the verbal agreement on the phone with Attorney Minor was that we would do a full system data extraction on the devices provided that were consented to.
That's your memory.
Yes, it is.
And your memory is that
Well, Valhalla, get out of the corner because the corner is always 90 degrees.
the agreement also included all of Mr. Walsh's cell phones, all of the children's cell phones, and all of the children's iPads.
No, my memory was that the devices I knew about was Mr. Walsh's cell phone that was missing, the children's cell phone that was in Mr. Walsh's vehicle, and the iPad referenced to by the 6-year-old, which was fixed by Anna. That's why the communication with Tracy Minor was about 2 cell phones with the iPad thrown in on top of those 2 devices.
Sergeant Buchanan, just on that particular answer the question. The second sentence in your report that you wrote that stated January 6, 2023, you wrote specifically, during numerous phone conversations, we established a verbal agreement for the digital evidence extraction of devices belonging to and being used by Brian Walsh and his juvenile children to include Thomas Walsh, 6-year-old, Thomas Walsh's 6-year-old. Those include his cell phones and his minor children's cell phones and tablets, correct?
If that's verbatim from my report, that is what's written.
So my question that I asked you just a moment ago was your memory of the agreement. Was it involved all of those devices?
In the Brian Walsh hearing, we are actually waiting for the judge to rule on the digital evidence being admissible. In the other trial, the Raoul Valley case, we are still on verdict watch. They haven't even come in and said, we're sending the jury back to deliberate. I haven't seen it, at least.
Not just the 2 that we're talking about.
My conversation with Attorney Minor was for the 2 cell phones I knew existed and were referenced.
So why did you put all those other devices in your report that you wrote specifically about the agreement?
Oh.
I don't understand.
Why did you refer to all of those devices in the one single report that you wrote and refer to it as the agreement? Why did you include all of the devices?
Because there was knowledge of other devices existing. So there was.
But you can't do that if you have an agreement. You wrote in your report all of the devices, but you had an agreement with which devices. And now they're going to tell me he wrote the report way after, right? He didn't write the report at the time that they requested this. They made an agreement with the attorney, his cell phone and the kid's iPad. And he writes in his report they had all of the phones and all of the iPads and the smart TV and the Ring app. And how can you be this bad at your job and still have a job? This is stupid. Hey, Marissa. How is Califas treating you? So cynical. Why would you even think that they would backdate? Because everyone in the Karen Reed case backdated their reports. I knew you were doing that, Sue. Hey, Stringer Bill. Oh, you're back on these. Well, why are you here that late? Get out of bed, you lazy bum. I got the sarcasm. You could tell my sarcasm as well. 165 gram to buy special swab kits without any chemicals that can be tracked, so they will never get caught in the middle of planting evidence with solo cups and stop shop bags. And they'll get that kitchen they wanted. Yet this is a big old problem. Why do they rehome them now after this is a month ago that he performed this badly in this trial and the Karen Reed trial, and they rehomed him. Apparently, maybe there's more people being rehomed today. Olivia Lambo, who's normally always very well informed about stuff. There's no official things anywhere. But why don't they rehome them when the defense lawyer says, what the hell are you doing? You're backdating your stuff. You're not. Why isn't anything in order? No, let's just fuck up another case and make a potential murder walk the streets, because who cares about procedure?
Diana's statement that she purchased cell phones for all the children.
Okay.
And iPads and AirTags, etc. So there were other electronic devices that could have come into play.
you would agree, wouldn't you, Sergeant Pinnock, that there is some real ambiguity between what you stated as the
Yeah, this case is from. It's a hearing from a month ago. It's the Brian Walsh case. Anna Walsh went missing. They apprehended him, and now this hearing is to try and figure out if the police got fruit of a poisonous tree, because they looked into way more than they had an agreement they could look into. And this is what Bukaki just said. Well, we just took everything. That's not the agreement. Yeah, well, we just get a judge to backdate our orders as well. Jeepers Christ.
content of the agreement in your report and that email that has been introduced into evidence?
I don't think it's ambiguous, no.
Did he have a very flat?
Were you present?
Sorry.
I don't think it's ambiguous, no.
Is the back of his head, isn't that very flat? You have to remember when you put your kid down that you should make sure they don't always rest on the back, because the skull will get a weird. I think his mom left him in the crib on the back too much.
Were you present at the home, Mr. Walsh's home, on January 6th of 2023?
I don't remember. I don't remember going to the home. I might have been. I don't remember going to the home. I know I was at the command post. There was other missions I was conducting. I don't have a specific memory of being at the house. But if you have a specific question about maybe what transpired, I could give you an answer.
He speaks very good English now compared to the Karen Reed trial. But isn't it funny that these investigators never go to the house? I never went to the crime scene. I had other duties. But I was the guy who was getting all the evidence. Yeah, I don't need it. Techno Stacy, he knows ambiguous, but not theory. Hey, thank you for 9 months. That's a baby.
Do you know that there were numerous searches conducted at the house on January 6th?
I know that the CERT team and the dive team conducted searches around the home. I was not present for those searches. I was at the command post.
And you weren't there because you were in DC on
That bill was actually reduced to $50,000.
January 7th.
That's correct. Early morning, January 7th, I left for DC.
Just so I'm following along, the date that you were using was 1/6.
Yes, for when searches were conducted.
Right, but you left on 1/7.
Right, he's not.
Would have been there, but he's at the outpost. I just want to make sure I'm trying to follow along with what the evidence is and that you're not missing up the dates. That's what I'm asking.
I could be missing up the dates. I'll be the
I
first
don't
to
know.
admit that.
I'll
But
let you go.
let
I'm
me just say,
giving you the opportunity to correct it if I've got something wrong. But I've raised it.
I
Maybe
appreciate-
I'm the one that has it wrong.
when did you leave for DC on January 7th?
Early morning hours. I don't know the exact time of the flight. Could have been 8, 9 a.m. But I never responded to Cohasset. I went from my home.
So you were not at the home on January 7th,
No, sir, I was not.
and you're not sure if you were at the home on January 6th.
I do not have a specific memory of being there. I might have.
Stop doing that.
But we can all agree you were there on January 5th.
Yes, sir.
Were you there on January 8th?
No, I was not.
What? What the hell's happening?
Were you there on January 8th?
No, I was not.
Oh, it's in the feed. It's not my.
And did you negotiate, as you call it, the agreement? Did you negotiate the dates that are involved?
Stop doing this.
Brian Walsh was eager to help us find Anna. The same sentiment was felt by me from Tracy Minor. She was trying to help while conducting her responsibilities as a defense attorney. So that was my understanding based on our conversation.
But was it your understanding that regardless of the communications that are referenced in there, attorney-client communications and communications between Mr. Walsh and Anna Walsh, that in fact there was a temporal limit placed on any of the devices?
Can you rephrase that question, please? The temporal limit, I just want to make sure I understand correctly.
That in fact there was a date of 12/25/2022 that the search parameter would begin, and there was an ending date of January 6, 2023 of the search parameter when the search would end. Are you aware of that?
I am aware of the date that we couldn't go back past, and that was the 25th. So we couldn't search for communications between client and attorney before the 25th, as well as Mr. and Mrs. Walsh's communications.
And I guess what I heard you say was that it wasn't you that suggested 12/25, correct?
Right. I wouldn't have a reason to pick a date. That date, other than being Christmas, it had no significance to me.
And it wasn't you who picked the date of January 6th, 2023.
I believe it was present. So the term used was present.
He's from Ukraine, right? So Christmas should be on the 7th of January for him, because he should be Orthodox if he's religious.
On direct examination, you used the word documentation in the context of what Attorney Tracy Minor asked for. You remember that?
Yes.
And was it documentation regarding what the agreement was?
She just wanted to put it in writing. So we needed to document what the specifics were.
And was it also documentation about what in fact searches were conducted and how they were conducted?
No, we didn't discuss the details of the searches. She just wanted specific things excluded from the analysis and the searching of the data from those devices. And that is what was documented by First Assistant Lambulan. And she agreed to
that.
it.
Yeah, he's a little trigger happy with the Zoom.
That's all I have, Judge. Thank you, sir.
Read around.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sergeant, what memory do you have of Attorney Minor mentioning privilege in your conversations?
No memory whatsoever.
The scene that was mentioned, where does the district attorney's office and the state police do those forensic examinations of children?
To the best of my knowledge, at NAC in Foxborough, if I'm not mistaken.
And do you have any certifications in cell phone analysis?
I do.
What certifications do you have?
I have a Celebrite Basic course. It's a week-long course with certification.
So when you say the term digital evidence extraction, what significance does that have as far as celebrating your understanding?
It's a full file system download, basically a copy of what the device contains for data and information on it that's then transferred onto a processing computer with an exact copy. Then Celebrite parses out certain information that's either labeled or carved out if it has been deleted and no longer assigned a value that is of significance.
Did Attorney Minor request a consent form?
No, she did not.
recross? Witness
This
stand
is
down.
Yuri Bukaknik.
You solemnly swear affirm the testimony you shall provide in the matter now herein to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God in the names of God. I do. Please have a seat. Just keep your voice up nice and loud.
And you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sir, could you please state your name and spell your last name for the record?
Yes, good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Lieutenant John Fanning, Fanning.
And Lieutenant, where do you work?
I work for the Massachusetts State Police assigned to the Norfolk District Attorney's Office.
How long have you been with the Massachusetts State Police?
20 years next month,
And how long have you been assigned to the District Attorney's Office?
13 years,
And how long have you been a lieutenant?
since December of 21.
Lieutenant, I'd like to ask you some questions concerning January 6th, 2023. That day, what was your involvement into the investigation to the disappearance of Anna Walsh?
I had responded to the command post in Cohasset behind Stop and Shop off of Route 3A.
And
They had dinner together, and he butt dialed him as well. No, that wasn't. No, that was Brian Higgins. Sorry.
at some point that day, did you leave to retrieve any digital devices?
I did.
Where were you going to get those devices?
The Walsh resident at 516 Chief Justice Cushing Highway.
And how did you know that you were able to go to that location to get those devices?
I initially spoke to Sergeant Buchanan, and then I spoke with Attorney Tracy Minor.
When did you speak to Attorney Minor, if you remember?
It would have been just before I left to go there. I'd say sometime in the 4 p.m. hour
And how did you contact Attorney Minor?
by phone.
And can you tell us about the conversation you had with Attorney Minor?
Yes, I introduced myself. I hadn't met her previously, so made a brief introduction. Told her that I had spoken to Sergeant Buchanan, that he was out of pocket because he was preparing for a trip to Washington, D.C., and that I'd be handling communications while he was gone. It was a cordial conversation. She was very cooperative. I explained that she had had a previous conversation with
They're looking for a girl called Anna. Who? Good morning, expert.
Sergeant Buchanan, and a email communication with First Assistant Len Beeland. I said I'd like to go get those devices as soon as possible. She agreed. She said that Brian was home and that I could head over there. We also had a brief discussion about why the timeline of the Walsh oldest child, that he had stated that Anna had touched the device and fixed it for him. That was really important to us because we were trying to hone in on surveillance.
And so what did you tell Attorney Minor about that device? Is that what you said to her?
Yes, we had a conversation about the importance of narrowing down our search timeline for vehicles potentially coming to and from that residence.
Now, did you want to go get those right now, as you just said?
Well, we were trying to find Anna Walsh. It was important that we got those devices. It was my understanding from other investigators that Anna used different devices. That was according to Brian, that Anna had utilized multiple devices. Brian had stated to investigators in previous interviews that Anna would use his phone from time to time.
I don't get these cultural references because the expert watches things that I'm thinking, what? And then he comes into my chat and starts talking about it. I'm sitting here thinking, am I dumb? And then he gave me the coof.
She had used it for Uber and Lyft. And then obviously the oldest Walsh's device was important because of this account from the oldest Walsh about
That's the Sandra Birchmore trial.
Anna fixing his iPad prior to her leaving.
So you have this conversation with Attorney Minor. About how long do you think the conversation was?
5 or so minutes.
And after the conversation, where did you go?
I went to the Walsh residence.
When you arrived at the Walsh residence, who was there?
Brian Walsh.
Was anyone else home at the time?
No, not that I remember. I didn't see anyone else.
And what happened when you got to the Walsh residence? Can you just tell us what's your interaction with Mr. Walsh when you got there?
Yes, I pulled in, went up to the front door, knocked. I was encountered by Mr. Walsh. I introduced myself. I had not met him previously. He invited me in. I stepped off to the left, which would have been in the kitchen area, dining area, just to my immediate left. I said, I just spoke with Attorney Minor. Did you know that I was coming? He said, yes. I said, I'm here to retrieve these devices.
And what was his demeanor like when you were speaking with him that night on January 6th?
Very cooperative, cordial, helpful.
And so you said that you were there. What devices did you think you were going there to retrieve?
His cell phone and his son's iPad mini.
And so you told him that did you tell him what devices you were looking for when you arrived?
Yes.
And so what happened after you told him about the devices you were looking for?
He went off to my left, past the kitchen into kind of a living room area. There's also a desk in that area. And very quickly came back with the iPad mini that he said was his oldest son's.
And did he produce anything else besides the iPad mini at this point in time?
He gave me a cell phone.
And after you got those two devices, what happens?
He then said that he wanted to go find another device that his kids access. I said, okay, he thought it would be helpful. At that time, he went to my right, which was into kind of an open, I don't know how to describe it, open room where the dog cage kennel was. And there was a flight of steps that went up to another room. He went out of view that way. And shortly thereafter returned with another iPad with a cracked screen.
And did he say anything when he gave you the second iPad?
He just said, my kids use this. It may, it might be helpful to you.
What did you say after he gave you the second iPad?
We had just confirmed the passwords. He had told me the password to his cell phone, and he confirmed the passwords on the two other devices, as the kids predominantly use those, and I wrote them down.
And so after you received the passwords, what happened as far as your conversation with Mr. Walsh?
I told him we're going to try to return them as soon as possible. I appreciate him cooperating, and I left the residence.
And so once you left the residence, where did you immediately go to?
My vehicle.
And when you got to your vehicle, what did you do with any of the devices?
I put the two iPads on my passenger seat. I had Brian Walsh's phone in my hand. I checked the password that he gave me to unlock it. It would be normal for me in most situations to put the device into airplane mode to preserve data. In this case, I don't recall putting it into airplane mode because if Anna had tried to reach out, the device wouldn't work. I also went into the text app just to see the last communication with Anna Walsh, the time, which really is just like a timestamp. It could say today, yesterday, or it would go back in time with dates. Then I relocked the phone knowing that I had the correct password and put it back on top of the two iPads.
And once you did that, where'd you go?
I went back to the command post.
And so when you got to the command post, Lieutenant, what did you do as far as handling who did you give these devices to?
Trooper Connor Keefe.
Why'd you give them to Trooper Connor Keefe?
Trooper Keefe is one of our forensics examiners. So he was there waiting, and I was arranging for him to take them back to our Canton office for download.
Do you have an idea of when you gave these to Trooper Keefe?
It was immediately following coming back from the Walsh residence.
And so did you give Trooper Keefe any commands at this point in time as far as what to do with these devices?
I gave him the three devices kind of stacked up on top of one another with a piece of paper with the passwords. And I told him, you have consent to download the data and analyze the data of the phone from December 25th until the present.
And did you give him anything else besides those three devices and the piece of paper with the passwords?
No.
And on January 6th, did you have any further conversations with Attorney Minor?
I do not recall any conversation on the 6th.
So do you know when those devices were returned to Mr. Walsh?
The afternoon, approximately 1:30 on January 7th.
Now, later that afternoon, were any of the troopers assigned to your detective unit dispatched to the area of Swampscott?
We're talking January 7th.
January 7th, yes.
Yes, they were.
Okay. And to be clear, we're talking about Saturday, January 7th. Who was dispatched to that area of Swampscott?
Oh, Fanning had sexual allegations in the case, but they were stricken from the case.
At approximately 4 p.m., I dispatched Trooper Kukowski, Sergeant Panazelis, Trooper Gulbranson, and Trooper Sullivan.
Where did you send Trooper Kukowski?
CVS in Swampscott.
Why did you send him to CVS in Swampscott?
Because Brian Walsh had told Trooper DeChico and Detective Schmidt that he had went there when he visited his mother.
And where did you send the other three troopers, Gulbranson, Sullivan, and Pantazelis?
Whole Foods in Swampscott.
Why did you send them to Whole Foods in Swampscott?
Because the defendant said that he had went there when he went up to his mother's residence.
And so why are you sending troopers to these locations that the defendant said he was at?
To confirm if he went there.
And so that was done, those troopers were dispatched on Saturday, January 7th at approximately what time?
Between 4 and 5 p.m.
And that time frame, when was it that you heard back from Trooper Kukowski about the CVS in Swampscott?
I'd say somewhere in the 6 to 7 p.m. range. I can't recall the exact time.
And what was it Trooper Kukowski able to confirm as far as the defendant entering the CVS in Swampscott?
He was not there.
And was Trooper Kukowski dispatched to another CVS at this point in time?
Yes.
Which one?
I don't recall exactly. And that wasn't at my direction. That was something he did on his own, which would be normal for investigators.
And did you receive knowledge from Trooper Kukowski if he had discovered
Yeah, Sunday.
the defendant on video of another CVS to confirm his time?
This is Trooper Fanning, who is also a part of the Karen Reed case and is also a part of the Sandra Birdsmore trial. Funny how all the a-holes are on the big cases.
Yes. And he did not see Brian Walsh at the other CVS.
Now, going to Whole Foods, who was sent to Whole Foods?
Sergeant Panazelis and Troopers Sullivan and Goldranson.
And what were they able to discover as far as confirming
Come back
the
another
defendant's
time, Ocean's
location at
daughter.
Whole Foods as he related to Trooper DeChico?
He did not go there either.
And about what time were they at Whole Foods to discover this?
Somewhere after 5 p.m. on the 7th.
Now, when were you ever notified about the contents of the devices that were given to Trooper Keith on the 6th?
Around 6 p.m. on the 7th.
And who notified you as far as the contents of any of the devices?
Trooper Nick Guarino.
And who is Trooper Guarino in your detectives unit?
He's also a forensics examiner.
And how did he notify you?
He called me.
And what did he say when he called you?
He said, I found something in the search history. And that's interesting. I said, well, what was it? And it was numerous searches about dismembering a body, how to embalm a body, how to get rid of a body, numerous searches related to that, another search related to divorce.
And so after he said he notified you of that, did he communicate to you and other troopers what he had found?
Yes.
How so?
He sent an email.
And as far as analyzing the iPad mini, what was your understanding as further analyzation of the iPad mini at this point in time?
We were going to stop.
And what was going to be done as far as the iPad mini after stopping? This is the data we're talking about.
Yes, we had stopped, and we were going to obtain a search warrant to seize that device.
So to seize that device. Now, where did you believe the device was located on the evening of January 7th?
It was back at the home.
And so what was done as far as trying to obtain a search warrant for the home?
We started writing one.
Well, most of the people, if they leave a body behind, they won't get parole anyway. So, but we have seen in the Adam Montgomery trial, sadly, we'll never find out what happened in that with the body in that case. So that's sadly how it goes most of the time.
On the evening of January 7th.
And was one obtained?
Yes.
When was that search warrant executed?
Between 8 and 9 a.m. on January 8th.
Now, were you there when it was executed?
I was.
So when the search warrant was executed, who was home at the Walsh residence?
Brian Walsh, his mother Diane, the 3 children, and their dog.
And after the search warrant was initially served, did you have any further conversations with Attorney Minor?
I did. Once we secured the scene, I called Attorney Minor and notified her that we were executing a search warrant at the Walsh residence. She told me that she was headed there and she'd be there shortly.
And how long after that did it take for her to arrive?
I'd say 15 minutes or so.
And once she arrived, what happened? Did you have any further contact with Attorney Minor?
We spoke in the driveway. I handed her a copy of the search warrant, and I told her we're searching the residence. Do you have a place for the Walsh family to go? Which she replied she did. And we arranged for her and the Walshes to leave to go to Attorney Minor's house in Scituate.
Now, after that interaction with Attorney Minor, did you have any further interaction on Sunday, January 8th with Attorney Minor?
I did.
When was that?
When we went to arrest Brian Walsh.
And where was that?
At her residence.
And what was the contact you had with Attorney Minor at this point in time?
She met us right out front. She actually came out before we got to the door. And I asked where Brian was. She said in the house. I said, we need to go talk to Brian right now. And she said, well, he's not going to say anything. I said, that's fine, but we need to find him right away. We walked right in. Dining room was right off to the left. Brian Walsh was standing there, and we placed him under arrest.
Now, Lieutenant, understanding you had the opportunity to have your communications with Trooper Guarino on the evening of Saturday, January 7th. Had you not had the conversations for Trooper Guarino on Saturday, January 7th, what would the State Police Detective Unit been doing to obtain a search warrant for the residence of Mr. Walsh that evening?
Had I not had that conversation with Trooper Guarino?
Yes.
At that point, the information came all at the same time, I would say. But the issue that we were having is regardless of the search history, we were still misled by Brian Walsh. In the information that he gave us, we spent time and resources going up to confirm his information. I think had we not known that information of the searches, we still would have written a search warrant for the house, less physiological fluid and instruments of the crime.
What information did you have as far as ransom emails at this point in time?
We had received an email, it was on the morning of the 7th, meaning we, Cohasset Police, from a Richard Walker requesting a ransom. And that stating basically that he had Anna Walsh and was requesting a certain amount of money for her to be returned.
And where was the last place Anna Walsh had been seen prior to her disappearance, to your knowledge, on the evening of January 7th?
Inside the home on January 1st.
Your Honor, may I have a moment?
Yes.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Cross-examination.
Lieutenant, have you reviewed the transcripts of the interviews that Mr. Walsh conducted by Cohasset Police and Massachusetts State Police on January 4th, January 5th, January 7th?
I would say I've, not directly the transcripts, but I have some understanding of them, sir.
So when you testified here just moments ago that Mr. Walsh, Brian Walsh, told one or more of those people that Anna Walsh had used his phone to contact Lyft or Uber. You remember saying that?
Yes, yes.
Where is that? Where is that in the interviews that I just described of Mr. Walsh?
I do believe I read it. I could be wrong for sure, but I do believe I read it. But I feel like that at least some type of communication was given to me at that time.
Well, was it but you're not suggesting it was a communication given to you by Mr. Brian Walsh. You're saying a communication by one of your colleagues or someone.
Correct. And it could have been one of the child's devices. I'm not sure I testified previously if I specifically just said Brian's phone. But that is what I remember.
And when you testify that based on your conclusion or opinion that Mr. Walsh had misled people with regards to where he was, you're relying on what another trooper reported to you based on his review of what?
Video surveillance and also items that he stated he purchased they had asked about.
And have you looked at those, whatever you're referring to, the videos of, say, CVS and Whole Foods?
No.
And did you, before you
There are two in the
relied on that
beginning of
information,
this,
did you talk
well,
to anybody at CVS or Whole
the other
Foods
day stream.
to discuss how their cameras are situated, what they view, what they don't view? Did you conduct anything like that?
Not personally, no.
And you are aware of the fact, aren't you, Lieutenant, that when Mr. Walsh was being asked questions about where he went and where he had been on certain days, that he was being asked those questions at his home, and there was distractions going on during those interviews. You're aware of that, correct?
I wasn't there.
Are you aware of the fact that on the recordings you could hear a dog barking repeatedly?
I didn't hear the recordings, but that would make sense.
And are you aware of the fact that
Didn't Bukaki say when we watched this on Monday that they were canvassing the area for videos? Hmm. I've seen a ton of Cellbrite reports, and I've never seen anything where I thought this seems suspicious. Normally, it's just idiots who don't stop talking about their crimes, or even idiots who film them doing crimes with their geolocation on. That's how we catch them in Denmark.
That Mr. Walsh specifically told the troopers when he was being, I'm sorry, strike that. Are you aware of the fact that when he was being asked questions on January 4th, he was actually talking and telling them that he was tired and hadn't had sleep and words to that effect?
No.
And in your experience as a state trooper investigating crimes, it's fair to say, isn't it, that when someone is being asked questions about a missing spouse, let's say, the mother of their children, they can be under some stress, correct?
Absolutely.
Now, you also told us that you were the one that went out and retrieved devices on January 6th of 2023, correct?
Yes, sir.
And back in January 6th of 2023, you didn't write in a report about that, did you?
I did not.
And then you told us on direct examination today that you remember having a conversation with Attorney Tracy Minor on January 6th, correct?
Yes,
And you didn't write a report about that.
correct.
And what you've done in the last week or so is you've written reports regarding those interactions, correct?
Yes, sir.
And one of the reports that you just wrote a couple of weeks ago, if not a week ago, you dated that the report date is January 6th of 2023, correct?
Yes, when it happened.
He wrote a report a week ago. He wrote a report a week ago. He wrote a report a week ago. I don't know if I had myself muted. He wrote a report a week ago. Why, oh, why don't you write it at the time? Because you're going to use it if it's going to trial. You can't rely on your memory when it's 2-3 years ago. Well, I just wrote a report. Well, it's not like it's your job or anything. Who cares? Well, I had some notes. Okay. All of you Massachusetts officers get paid shit tons of overtime. You should have time enough to write a report close to when you are doing these investigations. I can do it when I put in my things to my accountant and say, oh shit, I put this in today, but it's actually from that day because that's the day when the transaction happened. Then I'm allowed to backdate it. But let's just write reports 2 years after the incident, because we all know in Massachusetts your memory only gets better with time. Potentially because you're a police officer, you also listen to what all the other people are saying, and you're listening to the questions the defense are asking, so you might have a chance to correct certain mistakes in your reports when you write them after the fact. Yeah, you can always fill in the blanks. This is so ridiculous. Yeah, Technostation, yeah. One thing is they do it. The other thing is people let them do it. I know the common public didn't know how bad it was until the Can Reed trial hit the news. Thank you, Turtle Boy. But living in Massachusetts and seeing how Brian Walsh, Karen Reed, and Sandra Birchmore, those 3 cases alone should make you so angry that you would demand your money back. You're paying taxes to these idiots. I don't know which way I'm pointing. To these idiots. They can't even write the reports at the time because they need some wiggle room. Oh. Yeah, at least 2 years. How can the politicians? Well, I know why they'll allow it. I'll allow it. But how can the voters just keep voting for the same shit over and over and over again? And I'm not saying you need to. I don't even know which side Morrissey is representing. But I really hope that people will use their vote at the next election. And I really hope that the next one isn't just, hey, it worked for the last guy and I like my wallet big and fat. So it will be someone who will come with a broom and clean the house.
No.
And I need
Title
to buy a
of your
break.
report is interview 2023-112-4-116, report date 01/06/2023.
Correct.
When you enter those dates on these Massachusetts State Police reports in that particular space, that is supposed to indicate the date the report was written.
It is. I think it's a bit confusing. Sometimes it's the date I'm writing the report. Sometimes it's a newer system that we just had switched over to in the last few years. Sometimes it's the day I write it. Sometimes it's the date of the actual report.
Well, in
But I
fact,
usually reflect it in my first sentence, the actual time of the event.
like I just said, you've written no less than 3 reports in the last week or so, reciting what you testified.
Yes.
And in 2 of the reports, you put report date, May 7th, 2025, right?
Right.
And in the other report, you put the date of May 15th, 2025.
Correct.
So whether the system changed over the years, the fact is the system has been the same since you started drafting these reports years later about what you recall happened and didn't happen back on January 6th, correct?
Yes.
And one of the things you just told us that when you went to the house on January 6th, that at some point Mr. Walsh went up and got another iPad, a second iPad, correct?
Yes.
And you told us today on direct examination that he said something to the effect of, my son uses this, maybe it'll be helpful, correct?
Yes.
In the report that you just wrote in the last week or so, you didn't include anything in such a statement, did you?
I'm not sure.
May I approach you?
Yes.
May I see which one you're referring to?
Okay.
Got it. Okay, you got it.
And I'm just going to show you your report that just ask you questions about. It's has a date on it, January 6th. In fact, you want to page 2.
No, this is good, sir. Got it.
That's the report where you talk about going to the house and Mr. Walsh retrieving a second item, correct?
Yes.
And nowhere in that report does it say anything about him telling you, my son used this, or words to that effect, that maybe it'll be helpful.
Correct.
And it is fair to say, isn't it, that when you went over to the house to pick up the devices, you had been told that you were to pick up 2 devices, correct?
Yes.
One cell phone and one iPad.
Yes.
And that was pursuant to the agreement that was reached between Assistant District Attorney Lynn Beelan and Attorney Tracy Minor, correct?
About 2 devices?
Yes.
I was told to get 2 devices. I'm not sure if the agreement, as I had read it, specifically stated 2 devices.
When you say that agreement, what are you referring to specifically? A written agreement?
The email
Okay.
between Attorney Minor and Attorney Beeland.
So as you sit here today, you don't even have a recollection of whether that email is referred to as the agreement, only references Brian Walsh's cell phone and the iPad belonging to the 6-year-old?
As I remember, correct. As I remember it, we talked about what data was going to be extracted and what time frame.
No, but I'm asking you specifically about the devices you had been told to go pick up. You were told to go pick up one cell phone and one iPad.
That was my communication, yes.
And you got that communication from Sergeant Buchanan.
Sergeant Buchanan, yes, sir.
You didn't talk to Assistant District Attorney Lynn Beeland, did you? Regarding the agreement and what you were to pick up.
I do not recall specifically, but she was at the command post that night. I just don't recall a specific conversation with her about it.
And when you talked to Attorney Tracy Minor on January 6th, before you retrieved the items, you didn't talk to her about picking up extra items or anything of the sort. You just were talking about one cell phone and one iPad.
Correct.
And it's fair to say, isn't it, that the state of the knowledge of the investigation that you possess on January 7th of 2023, you had no information whatsoever that the iPad that was purportedly belonging to the 6-year-old had been used in any way to go from one location to another or anything like that, correct?
Just give me a second. I'm trying to process the question here. On January 7th, can you ask it again, sir? I'm sorry.
Restate the question,
It was-
because I'm
yeah.
not following it. If I can't follow it,
Sorry about
it's
that.
having evidentiary value to me. So why don't we just try that again?
I'll be glad to. Don't think I'm involved. My question to you is it based on what you had learned thus far up to January 7th? You had no knowledge that the iPad that you went to pick up on January 6th had been in fact used by Anna Walsh. Had
Are we talking about the iPad mini or the cracked iPad?
the iPad been?
Well, we did have information from the oldest Walsh that she had manipulated that device.
Right, but you didn't have any other information other than, quote, the manipulation of the device.
I'm only new to watching court cases thanks to Legal Vices. I'm just shocked of the misjustice in many cases. There's also a lot of cases where they get their man and people are guilty as sin. But you will remember these cases where you sit and think, they got all the power, they got all the evidence, they got all the money, and this is what they give you. And you will see a lot of those cases, but sometimes you will see a really good case presented really well as well. And luckily for that, because other than that, you would lose total faith in the system. But Jeff helped a lot of people getting into court cases. Sadly, we didn't get to do the last stream together that we had planned a week after we. Rest in peace.
What time are we talking? In the morning of January 7th? Previous to Trooper Gurney calling me?
Let's start. Yes. Yes.
No, I did not. No.
And you certainly didn't have any reason to believe that an iPad belonging to a 6-year-old would contain so-called location data or search history or anything like that, did you?
Location data, yes, it could include location data. There was no thought in my mind about search history at that time.
I've told this a few times. I am a layman in Denmark. That's our jury system, where we sign up and ask to be elected for 4 years at a time. Doing where I am is everything between 2 weeks and 6 years in prison is the court cases I would normally have, but we can have bigger cases. I have done one murder case because he opted to go to the lower court to get it expedited quickly. But I've been a layman in Denmark for, and I can't remember if it's 14, 15 years now. I'm probably in court anywhere between 20 to 50 times a year, doing all kinds of cases, mostly violence and drugs, of course, because that's sadly just what there's a lot of. So that's why I am a law nerd. I don't have any professional training. I just have a lot of experience. And then I was sitting looking for something some years back, and I watched. I think the first case I watched was the Rittenhouse of the Darrell Brooks with Ricada, and then I just started watching trials, and then someone asked me, "Hey, you want to come on talk about the Danish system, and you could cover cases," and then I started covering cases. So that's how I'm a layman. I don't know the law, but I watch it as a juror, if you can say that. I know we're all saying that, but that's my experience. Is probably a couple of 100 days in courtrooms, if not more, sitting and evaluating evidence, listening to people, remembering those things about even though they might look like a bad guy, they can still be innocent. And I got really mad every time I watch trials on Law and Crim or Court TV, because everyone is always screaming that everyone is guilty, and not everyone is guilty. And the police still, no matter how bad, and I always bring up the Adam Montgomery case because was such a horrible case, they still have to prove the charges against them. And that's why, hey, I'm probably never going to be the biggest law tuber. I don't do the clickbaity things. I don't have all of this. I don't do much of the drama behind it. And I don't have the skill set some of the really big law tubers have. But I like to do these watches and just give my unfiltered opinion about stuff. And I try to call it as I see it. That's why I want to have a chat where people can say, well, I think this guy did it, or I don't think this guy did it, or I think this is important evidence, or I think this is dumb evidence. And I like the community we have built here, because we agree to disagree, because we're all grown-ups and we have fun. And Sue is here. You're not a lawyer, but you're staying at Holiday Inn Express the coming weekend. Oh, fancy. Yeah, we're jury tube, not law tube. You have a good grasp on how things work and how they should work. Well, again, I have a lot of experience about how Danish trials run, and I've been watching American court for, I don't know, how long is Rittenhouse now? 5 years ago. I've been covering, I don't know how many cases. I know the difference between a pair of pants and a brief. I know it's not the same thing. Oh, well, yeah. That's the good thing about this jury law tubing community. We are good at also helping each other out, and there's a lot of good people out there. Let me be honest, there's also some people I don't like, because they really like to feed the drama and will always sit and just yell one point. I know in the Raoul Valley case, we don't all agree. Some people think he should go right down for murder. Other people should think he should be innocent. And I think, probably manslaughter. But that's what LawTube should be about. We shouldn't tell you how to think. If you come in late and you ask, hey, what is this about? I'll give you a rundown of it and how I see it. But or YouTube, JuryTube should be about you making your own decisions and watching how trials go on. And I feel some people might want to have you have the same opinion as them. I like it when Sue gets mad at me, because I'm right and she's always wrong. In your opinion, Walsh is guilty of sin, but will he get off because MSP was only supposed to look at conversations? They went too far beyond getting a warrant. Fruit of the poisonous tree. I think there's still maybe even though they have the fruit of the poisonous tree, there is enough circumstantial evidence that a good attorney could or prosecutor could get him in prison, but we don't have a ruling yet if the digital evidence comes in. If the digital evidence comes in, he's toast. I have no doubt about it, because even though I like to try and say I'm objective, I know most juries are just, he's charged with something, he's guilty. I actually think Court TV and LawTube has a more representative of the common jury than I do, because I have a lot of smart people here, and Sue, and you all sit here and say, well, this doesn't make sense, and this makes... Most people on LawTube is just, not LawTube, on Law and Crime is just, well, they wouldn't charge someone if they're not guilty. So I like our little crazy group here. Well, it's always as a creator, you want to be bigger. Well, you're getting fat enough. I know, but I have had a lot of things on my plate lately. Yeah, I can tell you ate all of it. No. Sue, you're wrong again. Yeah, and I disagree with the jury, because the jury is always wrong. With his criminal history, there could be no evidence, just a missing wife, and they'd vote guilty just in case he did it. But it's a white-collar crime, and that should not be admissible in this trial, because it's more prejudicial than probative. So I don't think that would be allowed in front of the jury. So Dreading just put out a 4.5-hour read of all Sarah Boone's letter in chronological order. Oh. I'm glad I didn't do that. I know Mo has been hoping to get hold of her communications, and yeah. Yeah. Crazy people are fun people. Sue and Zach are the crazy ones.
And you say it could have had location data in it, but you didn't have any specific information about any specific location data that
If the judge rules against it, they can't sneak it in even as motive.
might be in a 6-year-old child's iPad, did you?
No.
And you didn't have any information conveyed to you by anyone about another iPad described as a cracked iPad that you retrieved on January 6th also, correct?
Correct.
In fact, when you went there, you weren't even expecting to pick up an iPad, a second iPad, were you?
Correct.
And it's fair to say, isn't it, that the Mass State Police utilizes body cams when they conduct searches, correct?
Yes,
You did so in this case, didn't you?
correct. So, we use them until we secure the home, and then we usually deactivate them.
And were you wearing a body cam on January 6th when you went to the house to pick up the items?
No.
And you are familiar with Massachusetts State Police consent to search forms, correct?
Yes.
And you didn't use one or try to use one or attempt to fill one out before you took the items, the devices for Mr. Walsh that day on January 6th, did you?
No, we were working together cooperatively to find Anna Walsh. And I was happy that we were working together.
No, but I understand your answer. But you didn't use the consent to search form.
There was already an agreement. So I think it wouldn't have made sense after just talking to Attorney Minor, talking to Sergeant Buchanan, an agreement in writing to then show up with a consent form. I think Attorney Minor would have had a problem with that.
Well, you think that, but my question is simple. You used those consent to search forms. You did not use one in this case.
That's correct.
And those consent to search forms, without belaboring the point, they're used to make sure that
That's not allowed in as evidence. If they say this is not allowed in because it's it's an illegal search and seizure. It's the same if the cops come into your house and don't have a search warrant and they find something, can't use it against you in court. Well, they will try and sneak it in anyway, and yes, sometimes they get around the system, but things like this, we saw it in the Karen Reed case as well, where they tried to put in her contacting a lawyer, which is always protected. Her communications with a lawyer is always protected, but they wanted to bring it in, and even Bev couldn't allow that in.
what you do when it's looked at later on, that there's evidence that there was in fact a voluntary consent and that whatever
No.
parameters of any search that was going to
I hope you're doing well and you're not too influenced by the sad tragedy in Texas. But I hope even you are doing well, Zach. Celestial has been contacting me today if I had any contact info for you. I don't, because but I hope everything's fine.
conducted would be followed, and that the person giving consent understood that.
Yes.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Redirect.
Thank you, Your Honor. Lieutenant, you were asked a question about one of your police reports concerning whether or not you had mentioned that the son might have used the iPad for the police report.
Yes.
Do you have a memory of that paragraph where you mentioned whether you were asked about as far as the son using the iPad?
Guys are confusing me. I'm sorry. Do I have a,
We're right there with you.
do I have a memory of the paragraph? Is the one I just read?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember what you mentioned as far as the son using the iPad in that report? Would the report help you out?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
I'm showing you the report, which has a number of 2003-112-4/116. I want you to take a look at the third paragraph, specifically the second sentence. Go ahead.
Got it.
All right, Lieutenant, did you write the report whether or not the son used the iPad?
I did.
Nothing further. Your Honor.
I need recall. Witness may step down.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, I can call my witness.
You may.
Thank you, Your Honor. The Commonwealth will call Connor Street.
Well, you come back and be your own annoying self again, Zach, and
You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you shall provide in the matter now and hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God and in the names of the Holy Spirit.
all our thoughts are with you.
And just make sure to keep a voice like that.
Thank you, Laura, for 11 months. That's more than a baby.
You may
Thank you,
proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sir, could you please state your name and spell your last name for the record?
Connor Keefe, Keefe.
Sir, where do you work?
I work for the Massachusetts State Police.
And
Know
how
that
long have you
name
been in
too.
Massachusetts State Police?
Almost 8 years.
What is your current rank?
Trooper.
Within the state police, do you work for a division, a certain unit?
Yes.
What unit?
Currently assigned to the Norfolk District Attorney's Office.
And do you have any special responsibilities within that unit?
Yes.
What are those?
Digital forensic examiner and cell phone record analyst.
And have you received any training concerning the examination of cell phone or digital devices?
Yes.
Can you tell us kind of briefly what that training has been?
Sure. I have numerous training from Cellbrite, which is a cell phone forensics company. Also through Berla, which is a motor vehicle forensics company. I have online and hands-on training through Magnet. And
Yeah, digital
I have cell phone
forensic.
record analysis training
Aye.
from LexisNexis and the FBI CAS team.
Are you familiar with a company called GrayKey?
Yes.
And have you received any trainings from them?
Yes.
All of these trainings that you mentioned, do they carry certifications?
Yes.
What does it take to get the certifications?
Majority of the time, it's an in-person 40-hour training.
And so, in addition, have you had to take tests in these different disciplines as far as Celebrate Reiki?
Yes.
Did you pass those tests?
Yes.
Now, I'd like to ask you some questions as far as your involvement in the disappearance of Anna Walsh.
Yes.
When did you first become involved?
January 5th, 2023.
And how did you become involved?
I was requested by my supervisors to assist with analyzing exigent cell phone records from Verizon.
I'm sorry, was that exigent cell phone records?
Correct.
Okay. And whose number did you believe you were examining?
I believe the number was associated with Anna Walsh.
Because he was in that department back then. He was a normal detective, I believe, in the Karen Reed case, but he's then been transferred into the digital forensic. Currently a digital forensic investigator, and I suck at my job. I think, and I suck at my job is just something every officer, so they don't say it anymore, because that's every officer in Massachusetts. Well, connected to the DA's office.
And when was the last time that number connected with the network?
It was January 2nd, 3:14 a.m.
And do you know where that number connected with the network as far as the tower?
It was in the area of 516 Chief Justice Cushing Highway, Cohasset, Massachusetts.
When were you doing this on January 5th?
Late in the evening.
And so now I want to ask you about January 6th. On January 6th, Friday, when did you arrive in Cohasset, if you remember?
Around 8:30 p.m.
And where were you stationed in Cohasset that day?
During the day, sir?
Yes, sir.
At the CP?
And the CP, that's the command post?
Correct.
All right. Now, did anyone ever give you any digital devices that day?
Yes.
Who gave you digital devices?
Lieutenant John Fanning.
What did he give you as far as devices?
He gave me 3 mobile devices.
And what, you say 3 mobile devices. Can you describe them? Can you tell us what they
Yes. One was an iPhone 13 mini, one was an iPad 6 mini, and one was an iPad 6.
were? About what time do you think you got these devices from Lieutenant Fanning?
Sometime after 8:30 p.m.
And where did you go once you got these devices?
I went to
I
the
need a
Digital
haircut.
Forensics Lab at the Norfolk District Attorney's Office in Canton, Massachusetts.
And so you went from Cohasset to Canton at this point in time.
Correct.
And so we're talking about Friday night, January 6th.
Yes.
When you got to the lab, was there anyone else there from your unit to help you?
Yes.
Who was that?
Trooper Nicholas Garino.
So what was your understanding of what you were allowed to do with these 3 devices?
I was told that Brian Walsh and his attorney, Tracy Miner, provided consent to extract and analyze these 3 devices from December 25th, 2022 through January 6th, 2023.
And so how did you begin to do that extraction on these devices?
The first device I extracted was the iPhone 13 mini.
Okay, and so walk me through that. What did you do to extract data from the iPhone 13 mini?
Sure. So in the Digital Forensics Lab, use GrayKey, which is a forensic machine. We use specialized forensic hardware and software. You will have this GrayKey software program running on a forensic computer. You'll plug the device into the GrayKey hardware machine, and then the extraction process will begin.
And why didn't you just do all 3 at once?
We are limited to one GrayKey forensic machine in the lab.
And how long does it take for GrayKey to get the data from the device?
Could be hours.
That night, do you know when you began?
Not as much as a peep out of court. I have it running down here. I have to check sometimes to see if I'm still live, because nothing has happened, and it's been going for 2 hours. They asked to see the testimony from the defendant yesterday in relation to where his body was when he did the stabulation, and we haven't heard anything. I think they went back and deliberated for like an hour yesterday. So again, 3 hours. They came back after 2.5 hours and was hung already. And since then, they've been deliberating. I think we are over 16 hours now. So this is getting into Karen Reed territory of deliberation.
The extraction from the iPhone.
It's the lighting. The lighting makes them look softer, and it makes them look younger. So that's why everyone looks so different. It's kind of like us YouTubers can do tricks with it as well, so we don't look as bad as we do in real life.
iPhone 13 mini.
Approximately 9:30 p.m.
And do you know when that extraction was completed?
I believe 12:28 a.m. on January 7th.
Okay, so that took approximately 3 hours-ish?
Yes, sir.
After that data was extracted from that device, the iPhone 13 mini, what did you do next?
The next device I performed the forensic extraction on was the iPad 6 mini.
The iPad 6 mini. And did you wait until that was completed?
No,
What did you do?
I went home.
Okay, when was the data finally extracted from that device, if you remember?
I recall about 1:30 a.m.
Okay,
on the 7th.
and you weren't there when it was completed?
No, sir.
When did you return back to the Digital Forensics Lab in Canton to continue your work?
Approximately 10:30 a.m. on the 7th.
Was Trooper Guarino with you at this point in time?
No, he was not.
What did you do next?
Next, I conducted the extraction on the iPad 6.
And when did you begin that?
About 10:50 a.m.
And when was that extraction completed?
just before 11:30 a.m.
Now, once the data has been extracted from the 3 devices, what do you do with the data?
All the data has to be, so once the data is extracted, it is placed on the forensic server from the Gray Key software.
So how long does it take to get from the Gray Key software into the server?
Again, it can take hours depending on how large the extraction is, how much data there is.
And is this one at a time, or can you do all 3 at once?
We tend to do one at a time.
When did Trooper Guarino arrive on January 7th, that Saturday?
About 3 p.m.
And so did you have any difficulties getting the data from Gray Key into the server?
No.
All right, so the data's in the server. Now what do you do with the data?
In order to read the data, we use a program called Cellbrite Physical Analyzer.
And so how long does it take to get the data from the server to be read by the Cellbrite program?
Again, it could take hours.
And so that day, when were you finally able to start looking at data from any of the devices?
Approximately 5 p.m. on January 7th.
When Gray Key completes extracting data from a device, what is created from Gray Key as far as a report?
There's a Gray Key progress report.
And did Gray Key create progress reports for these devices?
Yes.
And have you reviewed those progress reports prior to today?
Yes.
And did they accurate to your understanding of how Gray Key works and what the device did as far as pulling the data?
Yes.
Your Honor, I apologize, but I think you have my only undoctored copies of the 3 Gray Key reports in the binder, and I was going to seek to mark those as the next exhibits. But if there's no objection to counsel, I think we can just move right along. So,
Okay, we'll move along then.
thank you, Your Honor. I'd ask that those next 3 reports from Gray Key be marked as the next 3 exhibits. And I lost my chart, but I believe that would put us at.
16, 17.
Thank you, Ms. Washington.
All right, so they're in evidence at 16, 17, and 18, and at some point, I know soon, not today, soon, like tomorrow morning,
Yes.
you're gonna have a conversion chart for me.
You are right, Your Honor. We will do that.
All right,
Thank you. And I apologize for the confusion. What device did you have the opportunity to review? What data from what device did you have the opportunity to review?
The iPhone 13 mini.
Where were you reviewing this data from the iPhone 13 mini at the office in Canton?
I was on the first floor in the forensic lab.
Where was Trooper Guarino at this point in time?
He was on the second floor in the main office area.
And did one of you start before the other, or was it around the same time?
It was around the same time.
What device's data was he reviewing that night?
The iPad 6 mini.
Now, what did you notice when reviewing the iPhone 13 mini as far as the device being unlocked between January 1st and 2nd?
I noticed there were 4 unlocks between that time frame.
When you're looking at the Cellbrite program, can you just describe for us what does the Cellbrite reader look like when you're looking at it?
So Cellbrite Physical Analyzer, it's interactive. So it parses the data out to a readable format. It parses it out into calls, contacts, messages, web history, locations, stuff of that nature.
And so what part of the Cellbrite program were you looking at as far as analyzing the data?
I went to the timeline view.
All right, what's the timeline view show you?
Timeline view gives you the ability, it shows you all device activity from the whole device.
And so what did you do as far as confining the amount, the time in the timeline that you were looking at?
I condensed the timeline down to January 25th, 2022 to January 6th, 2023.
And so when you look-
Absolutely shitting nut.
January 6th.
January 6th, December 25th, 2022 to January 6th, 2023.
Got it.
Yes, Your Honor.
And so why didn't you go to December 24th of 2022?
That was outside the consent agreement.
And so when you're looking at this timeline function and you confine it to that area, what access do you have to data before the 25th of December?
None.
So again, you're looking at the timeline feature. And why do you choose to look at the timeline feature?
Because that will narrow down or condense the amount of data in which I am looking at.
Now, while you were looking at the timeline for the iPhone 13 mini that night, did anyone interrupt you?
Yes,
Who?
Trooper David Chico.
And what did Trooper DeChico ask of you?
Trooper DeChico informed me that he conducted an interview earlier in the day on January 7th, and Brian Walsh stated that on January 2nd, the only place he went to was Press Juice Bar in Norwell, Massachusetts.
And so after hearing that from Trooper DeChico, was there anything, did he ask you to do anything?
He asked me to confirm or corroborate if there was any location data associated with that.
So this is on January 7th. You're looking at the timeline data and you're talking to Trooper DeChico.
Yes.
And what do you discover as far as location data on January 7th?
So prior to that, after Trooper DeChico told me, through the timeline application within Cellbrite, I filtered out all data but native location data within January 1st to January 6th.
Okay.
And from then, I started my analysis for January 2nd.
What is native location data in cell phone analysis?
Native location data is embedded in the Apple iOS operating system. It can come from a number of different things: Bluetooth, satellites, GPS, Wi-Fi, a number of different things.
And how is the device doing that?
The device constantly communicates with different technologies.
Now, you've confined the location data, the native location data from January 1 to January 6th, and you're looking at what time frame now?
The whole time frame.
And did you have any further conversation with Trooper DeChico about what you're seeing on January 2nd?
Yes.
What'd you say?
Approximately 4:15 p.m., January 2nd, 2023, the device is in the area of Home Depot in Rockland, Massachusetts.
Now, do you talk any further with Trooper DeChico at this point in the evening?
Not that I recall.
Did you have any conversations after that with Trooper Guarino?
Yes.
And when was it that Trooper Guarino talked to you that night?
Approximately 6:30 p.m.
And what was it that Trooper Guarino approached you about?
He had found some concerning searches on the device that he was analyzing.
And he was looking at the iPad Mini 6?
Correct.
That he didn't have an agreement to search.
The one without the crack screen?
Yes.
Okay. And what was it that now he tells you this? Do you do anything to look at the data that he's talking to you about?
No.
Okay. So what did he tell you about?
He told me there was a number of concerning searches that occurred on the iPad.
So what was done as far as any further searching of the iPad 6 Mini?
To my knowledge, Trooper Guarino, he had stopped his analysis and informed the supervisors.
Now, with what you were looking at.
Don't be sorry that you talk about some hard stuff as well, because we are an all-encompassing chat. Sometimes it goes a little cray-cray, and I'm looking over and thinking, what, who, what? But there's a lot of people out there who is thinking about that right now.
Which was the iPhone 13. Did you stop your analysis as far as the work you were doing on the iPhone 13?
No.
So on the iPhone 13, did you have the opportunity to do any further analysis as far as native location data on that device?
Yes.
When did you do that?
January 8th.
And what were you analyzing as far as native location data for the iPhone 13 device on January 8th?
January 1st through January 6th.
And in reviewing that data, did you notify any troopers to go anywhere?
Yes.
Who did you call?
I called Lieutenant Fanning, I believe.
Okay. And where did you want to send troopers to?
The Claremont Apartments in Abington, the Point Apartment Complex in Abington, and Chatham West in Brockton, Massachusetts.
And why did you want to send troopers to those locations on January 8th?
Because at that time, it was still a critical incident, and Anna Walsh was missing, still missing at that time, and we wanted to try and locate her.
And why those apartment complexes?
Put her on to see if she might went there, or
Well, how do you know? Like, is the phone telling you that it's at those locations? Why are those locations significant to you? How do you know to go to those three? How do you know to send troopers to those locations?
in order to collect surveillance, see if anyone had seen her or.
Sure, I understand that's the why. I guess the question is the how. So what is it that you saw in the phone that said go there?
GPS points or native location points within those different areas.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that
Not my fault. It's the feed from Lawn and Grim that they just cut there.
testimony shall provide in the matter now and herein shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God under the pains and penalties of perjury. Please have a seat.
But
Make sure to sit nice and close that microphone and keep your voice like that.
you get to see our favorite trooper. I'm limping because I got hit by a car. Rumor is he is trying to get early retirement because of his injuries as a way out. Well, of course not, because he was hit by a car and has medical issues, which is sad for him. But rumor has it, with all the house cleaning that's been going on, that he might try and get on an early retirement because of this injury. As well as the rumor is that Fanning might be the next one, and the Chico is also rumored to be up for something. People said that Fanning has been removed. Haven't seen any confirmation so far.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Could you please state your name and spell your last name for the record?
Yes, Nicholas Garino, Guarino.
And sir, where do you work?
For the Massachusetts State Police at the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office.
How long have you been with the Massachusetts State Police?
About 10 years now.
And how long have you been attached to the Norfolk District Attorney's Office?
November 2019, so about 5 years, 6.
And I take it that your current rank is true for them?
Yes, it is.
Within that unit attached to the District Attorney's Office, do you have any specific responsibilities?
Yes.
What are those, sir?
I'm a forensics investigator doing cell phone and computer forensics, and also a sexual assault investigator.
And what training have you had as far as digital forensics? Just kind of a brief overview.
Numerous trainings through Cellbrite, Magnet Axiom, Berlin Motor Vehicle Forensics, Great Key training, all that.
Including Cellbrite?
Yes, sir.
Now, when did you become involved into the investigation concerning the disappearance of Anna Walsh?
The night of January 6, 2023.
And you say the night, so that would have been Friday night, January 26th, January 6th of 2023?
Yes, that's correct.
And where did you go to begin your work into this case?
To the Norfolk County DA's office.
And within the Norfolk County DA's office, is there a specific place where you were able to do your work?
Yes, that's correct.
Can you tell me about where is that located?
So on the first floor, we have a digital forensics lab
Yes, sir.
where we have specialized hardware and software computer systems to.
Yeah, chat just had a big old pause and then started moving fast again.
Extract digital devices.
And who did you meet there that night when you were working on this matter?
Trooper Connor Keefe.
And what did the two of you do that evening as far as working on this matter?
So we were provided 3 devices to be extracted and examined at some point.
And that night, about what time do you think you left the district attorney's office?
It would have been 12:45 on, technically it would have been the 7th of January.
And had you finished downloading all the devices?
No.
And forgive me, I just want to make sure I get this right. What are you doing with the devices on the 6th?
So each device has to be plugged into whatever we're using to extract software, the data. So for this one, we use Great Key for the devices.
Okay. And so had you completed all the devices that night?
No, the first had been completed, and then the second one had started. And once we knew that it was pulling the information correctly, I left for the night.
And when did you return to work on this matter?
This would have been January 7th. I got to the office probably around 2:45, 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
And when you got to the office, sir, what was the status as far as the devices having the data pulled from them?
The third device had been pulled, I believe, that morning, and they had been returned prior to my arrival to the office.
So the devices weren't there at this point in time?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So what do you do now that the data's been pulled from the devices?
So they have to be downloaded from Great Key, and then once downloaded, they go onto our server. Once there, we have to open them in either Cellbrite or Magnet Axiom to view the information from the devices.
Okay. And so that day, what program did you, well, so when you got there at, say, 3 o'clock, what step in the process are you as far as analyzing the data?
I hope they won't grant it to him. I know the MSP have said they don't want him back and think they were right. But again, this is a civil service, and unions has a whole lot of power in public service. So they might end up finding that his termination was not valid, but I can't see how they could do that. But I've seen less weird things when unions are involved. They have a lot of power.
I have to download it from the server from Great Key, and then from the server, from the DA's office server, we have to open it into Cellbrite or, like I said, Axiom, to have that data viewable. That's what the programs make that data viewable and readable.
Okay. And so which program did you use to view the data of the devices on January 7th?
I only looked at one device. It was the iPad Mini 6. I used Cellbrite.
And were there any parameters on what you were allowed to look at as far as the iPad Mini?
Yes, there was a date range that was given to us for December 25th, 2022 to what would have been the 6th when we extracted the information.
And when did you start looking at the data from the iPad Mini?
It would take about an hour or so to download the information from Great Key, and then another couple hours to open it. So it was probably closer to 5 o'clock that afternoon or evening.
And to be specific, there were 2 iPads that were turned over. This is an iPad without a cracked screen. It's an iPad Mini 6. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
So where were you in the office when you were looking at this data from the iPad Mini 6?
The second floor forensic computer by my desk.
And where is Trooper Keith in relation to you when you're doing this?
He had gone downstairs to the other forensic computer down in the digital forensics lab.
And what did you do as far as beginning your search or analysis of this data?
Once it opened in Cellbrite.
Yes, sir.
So once it opened in Cellbrite, would have looked at the timeline view. So I loaded timeline and filtered by the date range that was given.
Now, why do you use the timeline view?
Multiple reasons. It's the easiest way to pare down the data by date range, and it gives a comprehensive list of how the devices interacted from the 25th to the 6th, as told.
And what did you begin to notice while you were going through this data in timeline range?
So it has every device interaction, what's been done with it. Started seeing searches on the 27th of December for best place to get divorced, worst place to get divorced, best states for divorce.
And after the 27th, did you notice anything further that caught your attention when you were analyzing the data for this device?
Yes, the morning of the first, approximately 4:55 a.m., began seeing searches of how to dispose of a body.
And after starting to see these searches, what did you do?
So I went through the information, the data, probably up to about the 2nd, and I saw numerous searches about body disposal, removal of smell, glass at dump, cadaver dogs at the dump, and I contacted, I went downstairs and contacted Trooper Keith to tell him what I'd found search-wise.
Okay. And after speaking with Trooper Keith, what did you do?
I contacted Detective Lieutenant Tully and advised him of the search items I found.
Who is Detective Lieutenant Tully in relation to your unit, the state police?
He was in charge of the unit at the time.
And who is the executive officer?
Trooper John Fanning. Sorry, Lieutenant John Fanning.
Lieutenant John Fanning. And so you call Detective Lieutenant Tully, and what do you decide to do as far as your analysis of the data at this point in time after speaking with Detective Lieutenant Tully?
Yeah, so I took that information from the searches. I created a PDF and emailed it out and stopped looking at the data on the iPad Mini after that.
Okay. And you said you emailed it out?
Yes.
You're on my approach?
May.
Halfway there, sorry. Do you recognize that email you sent to?
Yes.
Is that the email that you sent out to the members of the detective unit that night after seeing the data?
Yes, that's correct.
And what time did that email go out?
6:25 p.m.
On what day, sir?
Sorry, January 7th, 2023.
Thank you. Your Honor, this has already been marked as an exhibit within the book, and I believe I have that number right here for you, Your Honor. It is Exhibit 17.
Can I ask a question for clarification? It's Exhibit 17.
Yes, Your Honor.
At some point in time in the pleadings, I believe, I saw what I thought at the time was, based on what I knew of the evidence, what I thought was an incorrect date with regard to the searches of, call them the best place to get divorced. I believe in some of the pleadings, I think it was the defense's pleadings, I'm not sure, it could be the prosecution's pleadings, that the date of that is listed in January. And that I remember reading it and thinking that's not consistent with what I thought the state of the evidence is. This witness has just testified that he started seeing searches on the 27th of December of 2022, which is correct. Is there any dispute about this?
No, and I would just like to say it wasn't my mistake because we didn't discuss divorce stuff, so I'm happy to say that I didn't.
It wasn't, well, now that you've got me curious, it was in a list of, I thought it actually was in the defense's paper, just so that if you,
Judge, I don't mean to interrupt, but if you're referring to one of our exhibits, that was the exhibit produced at the grand jury by one Michael Proctor. So if there's
it's actually I'm not referring to that, counsel. I'm referring to page 3 of your memorandum in support of your motion to suppress the search warrants. And
No,
on that, it
I
says,
look like a hippie.
A, best date to divorce for a man, 1/27/23 at 9:54:13 p.m.
Yeah, Your Honor, that was mine, and that must have been a
All right,
clerical error.
I'm just trying to get the accurate data.
You're, I think it helps.
I love that this judge is so well versed in all the exhibits and everything, so she can clarify things. It's not just Jim. Can you get that for me?
Counsel, because it is a typographical error in one of the search warrants.
That's fine, just,
And I believe that that's how counsel got it. And so I see where it comes from. It's from a typographical error in one of the warrants. You picked up on it quicker than we did.
well, because the data is new to me, and it's,
I don't schedule. I have a $12 haircut at a walk-in place. No, I'm not blurry. It's your feet that's wrong.
old to you, so you gloss over it, which is totally normal. I don't know anything about this case other than what you teach me.
Your Honor, I apologize. On page 3, that was a cut and paste from the warrant, just to show the court exactly what was put in. But we agree it's
I
12/27.
totally understand all of that. I just wanted to make sure that I have the right information.
And Your Honor, we all agree it's 12.7.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
So you said it was we're looking at number 17,
Yes, Your Honor.
and for some reason I can't find that. Oh, here it is. All right, so this email says something different than what we just discussed, but I guess the underlying records will tell the dates, whether it was the 27th or the 28th. Exhibit 17, I see.
Bum 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 ba-dum, bum 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 bum.
All right, sorry to interrupt. Are you done with this witness?
Oh, no, I have a few more questions, Your Honor.
All right, you go right ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. May I approach the Show Counsel?
Yes.
Thank you. Trooper, I'm showing you a Celebrate document, and for the record, it's marked as Exhibit 18 in the binder, Your Honor. Trooper, you recognize the Celebrate document?
Yes,
What is the Celebrate document?
this is the searches. This is the web history search, web history from the Apple iPad mini.
And so this is what you're alerting the other troopers to in your email.
Yes, this,
Sorry, bless you. So,
Commonwealth, what exhibit? Because it's not on the list. Is this
18?
18,
so it's a new exhibit?
it was in everything we already have.
I'm streaming in 720.
Trooper, you sent this email out, you had a conversation with your unit commander. What do you decide to do as far as further analysis of the data from the iPad 6 mini?
But I don't think he was found guilty in all of the charges. I have shared what charges he was found guilty in before. I saw the same, but I think he was only found guilty in 2 or 3 of the, no, 3 or 4 of the charges, but I'll have to look it up again.
again, due to the searches and speaking with my commander, I stopped looking at the data.
And what was your next steps as far as working on, what was your next decision on what you wanted to do as far as any further analysis on this, or to get your hands on this device?
When we needed to work in the search warrant for the home, the devices were there to get them again and re-image them, post a search warrant for those for the devices that we get.
So you said a search warrant for the home. Were you present for a search?
No, everything is fine on my end. I only had one drop today of the internet, which is StreamYard related. StreamYard actually put up that they have a problem with Chrome browsers. So try and put it. I'm streaming in 720p. No, I actually think this is HD. So maybe you have me at 340 or something, and that's why it gets blurry.
Search warrant of the Walsh home in Cohasset.
Yes, I was.
And when was that, sir?
Sunday, January 8th in the morning.
And what was seized from the home as far as devices that morning?
There was 3 MacBooks, the iPhone 13 mini, the iPad 6 mini, the iPad 6 with a cracked screen, another iPad that I don't remember the exact model number of, and an iPhone SE.
Your Honor, just one moment. And I'd like to ask you just one last question. On that report I just showed you, was that the UTC time?
The web history search?
Yes, sir.
Yes, that's correct.
And so what would need to be done, what do you need to do to UTC time to understand what time that search would be conducted in the East Coast in, say, January 2023?
Due to daylight savings, it would be minus 5 hours of the time that's listed.
Nothing further wrong.
Cross examine.
Why did you stop?
What's that, sir?
Why did you stop?
The searches, the data. To me, the searches that I saw looked like something more than a missing person.
You told us just now in direct examination that you spent about an hour to transfer the extracted data, correct? Once it's off the Great Key?
Yes, that's correct. It has to download from their server.
And then it took about 2 hours just to upload it into Celebrite Physical Analyzer?
Yeah, give or take, sir.
And then you started your analysis about 5 p.m.
Approximately, yes.
And it's fair to say that then it's about an hour later, after you've been looking at the data, that's when you began to see these search histories that caused you some concern.
That's correct, sir.
And then it wasn't until about 20 or 30 minutes later, based on that email that's exhibited, that's been admitted, that you then stopped and emailed.
I had stopped prior, but I had to export the information, that web stuff, so that takes time, and then put it into the email.
So it's fair to say then that you spent about an hour from 5 to say approximately 6, approximately 5 to approximately 6, looking at the data.
Yes, that's correct.
And you spent about an hour looking at, for instance, the search history data.
It was in the timeline, yes.
Yes, and so it took you an hour to scroll through and look at that data before you even came upon these suspicious activity.
Yes, that's correct.
So it wasn't that when you opened up the timeline feature and then put in the time parameters, that suddenly these suspicious search histories popped up and you looked at them and recognized them as you're being suspicious. You had to scroll through hundreds of search history data before you even got to it, correct?
Yes. There was numerous bits of information in that data, so it's everything that was on the device, how it was utilized. So I believe it was like 190,000 different entries of data.
And you would agree with me, wouldn't you, Trooper Marino, that if you had been instructed that the parameter was limited to communications, you wouldn't have been looking at that search data, scrolling through it for an hour, would you?
No, I would have.
Even though you were given parameters of communications only?
I wasn't given that parameter.
No,
Oh,
I understand.
Yeah.
I probably was confused. I apologize. If you were given strict parameters, that you were only to look for communications, and there was no indication of search history or location data or anything of the sort, you would have been scrolling for an hour through that search history, would you?
It would depend. Multiple ways to have communications on a device. Like a web chat feature, calls, obviously the regular calls, texts, but the app data also has, like Snapchat, loads differently. So there's multiple ways to find only the communication data.
Right, and once again, Celebrite Physical Analyzer has all these categories you can check off, correct?
Yes.
Regarding communications, correct?
That is correct.
But you didn't check off any of those, because you didn't know, you didn't believe, you were told that there were in fact parameters.
The parameters I was told was the date range, and that communications prior to the 25th were privileged because they may have been attorney-client privileged items.
And when you just now refer to app data, it's fair to say that isn't it that what you were using, the Celebrite Physical Analyzer, actually segregates, pull out app data separately and inform the entity. Here's app data. You can look at this as app data.
Again, it would depend on the app.
So just looks clear.
Excuse me. I'm good, sir. Thank you.
When we hear about this timeline feature and things like that, with Celebrite physical analog. It's not that when you open up the timeline feature, all of a sudden, all of this data we're talking about, all these search histories, they pop up on the screen. You have to begin to methodically scroll through them and analyze each one.
Yes and no.
Okay. And that, yes or no?
Yeah.
You had to scroll through an enormous amount of data to even get to what you consider to be the suspicious searches.
Again, yes and no.
Okay. Yes.
I'm sorry.
Come on.
That's all I have. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Redirect.
Nothing further on.
Witness may step down.
He might be going for this water up here.
Don't please get any
I'm not getting
closer.
any closer.
If he comes jerking over here, I'll shit myself.
He's too tired to run.
The judge is, as far as I know, still considering if the digital evidence will come in. No decision so far. Yeah, actual dinosaur. This has been going on for 2 hours now without anything happening. Will something happen today? I don't know. But it's dinner time, my time. So I think I'll chuck you all over to Recovery Addict. He's also covering this. And if there's a verdict coming in, I will be jumping back on. But you can hang out over with Recovery and enjoy his stream. No verdict. That's why I'm saying nothing. There doesn't need to be a deliberation clock. Don't start with the. I've been watching the chat on Lawn and Crim, and they have been arguing for hours if it's deliberating. If they are deliberating because there's no clock, the clock is not something the court puts on the stream. That's something Lawn and Crim puts on the stream. Recovery Addict has a clock for you. I sent you over there, and you can see the clock. It's 14 hours and something. The clock doesn't mean anything. What means something is the jury is still deliberating in this case. They are still hung on the charges. And yeah, we covered the Brian Walsh so far. Go hang with Recovery. Give him some donuts in chat. I might, if it's not too late and I'm not falling asleep. And I will now see, because now it's getting colder, so hopefully the bees will be less active, wasps will be less active. So I'll go out and see if I can find out where the hell they are living so I can get rid of that wasp nest. It's in my shed, so I can't just fill it up with gas and burn it off. But I'll have to figure something out. Maybe I'll need some grease spray and I'll do it. Well, if I don't get killed by the bees, I'm allergic to wasps, so it's not the smartest move, but I need to do some stuff. Well, can you come by and fix the wasp problem? I'll be fine. No final rounds at this bar. Brandon's not here today, so there's no final rounds. Brandon, we miss you, buddy. We only got one, maybe two chats from Brandon today. I'm worried. Did his wife finally... We don't know. Go hang out with the Recovery.
What exhibit are you referring to?
I'm going to make this 100, Your Honor.
All right.
100.
100.
Because it is 100%
100%.
correct.
Check in your other.
So you literally built a cannon Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
All right, I'm in love.
Go back. Please do that again. Oh, that was the cutest thing I've ever seen.
While I'm waiting for this, did you, whether it's true or not, believe that Mr. Randolph had slept with your wife?
I wouldn't care.
You wouldn't have cared?
No.
Did you believe he had slept with your wife?
No.
Did you believe he slept with your mother-in-law?
Probably did. Everybody is.
So